Hey guys, what's up? We're back with some more reactions after dark. Are of course going to be watching the Soul Fairy Tragedy by Rotten Mango. Obviously, I don't know how to say that. But yeah, last time we did some Void stuff, which is just more Reddit stuff. Though of course the last Rotten Mango video was the Itaewon Halloween tragedy, which was pretty rough to watch. I'm assuming this is probably going to be pretty bad too. This also is 2 hours. This is a 2 hour long video, and I feel like there's probably no way I'm going to get 4 hours out of this because, again, I typically try to talk to about 2 hours, but her videos aren't really easy to talk over. You kind of just sit there and listen. There's not much to chime in on. So I do kind of find it hard to do that kind of stuff with her videos specifically. Other videos I can easily uh, talk for like double the length of the video. With her, it's just not something I can really do. So this video will probably be about 3 hours, I'm just going to assume, or I'll at least try to push it 3 hours. Though I was originally going to do like Nuke's top 5 today or something like that, something silly or dumb, because this is episode 9, not necessarily episode 19, but it's video 19 in my Rad series, Reactions After Dark. And I've been doing this daily, like every day. So for 19 days straight, I've just been watching and commenting on like just tragedy after miserable like, event after miserable events, and obviously I'm drowning over here at this point. Like I need at least a second of air, but we're going in again for uh at least the Ferry tragedy here because it was one of the three suggested for Rotten Mango, and that'll be it for that. And then we can figure out what we're gonna watch from her next time. Though tomorrow will most likely be, unless something changes my mind, like Nuke's top 5, which is like silly ghost stuff. That's all fake. Something we could just have fun with. It's still like after dark stuff. It is still supposed to be spooky and horror-ish because horror is uh, acceptable content for this Rad series. It's just like I need a break, man. So yeah. Also, may have not noticed, but I added like the finishing touches to this model as well. You probably can't tell, but I have like a normal map, which you might not know what a normal map is, but just look. You can just look at the arms now. They have like a detail on them on the sides there, so all the fur and whatnot looks more furry. Now, obviously, like the pants have a normal map up being applied to them. That's giving them that texture. So same thing to the fur and whatnot. It all has that lining on it now. So this probably will be the finished version of this model that goes up for sale on my shop whenever that happens. Also, we are capturing the monitor this time around, so I can do stuff like this. So I could just like draw on the monitor if I need to. I doubt it will come in to play here, but if it does, I will be using that. So I think it's pretty risky to have your monitor being recorded rather than just the browser itself, because obviously you'd be like, oh no, my browser closed, and now you can see all my Pokemon on my desktop. Oh no. But I mean, it could create situations like that, right? But yeah, I think we've talked for long enough, so we can just get into the Sewol. Again, I don't know how we're supposed to pronounce that. She'll obviously say it when we get into it. Sewol Ferry tragedy. Coward captain left 350 students to die in a sinking ship. I believe this was the one that I was supposed to watch.
Bada bing, bada bing.
This is going to be a long one, and it's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, I mean like an hour and 50. Again, like the Itawan one was rough, really rough, and I'm assuming this is gonna be the same thing because it's gonna be like a million different first-person perspectives and people being sad. She's probably gonna be crying, and then that is contagious, so it makes you feel bad. So
Okay, we're talking about the Sewol tragedy, the sinking of the Sewol boat.
okay, so it's just you just like kind of slur to this soul, because it kind of says soul like that too, like the main place in Korea. So like I can't say it because I don't know how to speak it, but if I heard it enough times, I'd be able to say it.
Boat. Now, two 16-year-old students from Tanwon High School, they made headlines. There were some rumors that they were dating. There were some rumors that said, no, they were just close friends.
What does that have? Why does that? What does that matter? What the heck? Starting off with two kids that were allegedly dating.
But most of the students that knew both of them personally said they barely knew each other. I don't even think that they had a class together. Most kids said that was the extent of their interaction, just passing each other in the hallways. Yet the two of them found each other alone in a room, in a boat, terrified. I mean, they're watching the water starting to pool on the ground, and they didn't know what to do.
I guess that's what I was assuming where this was going to go. That they're just trying to set the mood of like these kids didn't know what I didn't know each other at all really, and now that they're in this situation together, they're gonna make it out together? Question mark. Or one's gonna survive, the other's not. Who knows? We'll have to obviously keep seeing where this is
I'm
gonna
sure they
go.
were frantic. I'm sure that there were a lot of things going on in their minds. I'm sure that they were trying to comfort each other. But eventually, everything goes black. A civilian diver would later find both their bodies alone in that room.
Okay, so we're it's a standard where she kind of like inserts like commentary on how people could have felt. Don't necessarily know how they felt. It's just creating a scenario where this is how maybe they felt, and it makes it seem more real. But technically, we don't know how they felt if they both died, or how what they did, how they were feeling in that moment. We can only make
And their
assumptions.
life jacket cords were still tied together. He remembers how he had to separate them because he physically couldn't bring up two bodies at once. And he recognized that in their last moments, maybe these two kids knew each other, maybe they didn't, but in their last moments, they didn't want to be alone. So they tied the strings of their life jackets together till the very end. And he said, I started crying, thinking that I didn't want to separate them, but I had to. He said it was one of the hardest rescue dives that he had ever endured in his entire life. He would never forget some of the stuff that was seen. Other students from the same high school, Tanwon High School, faced similar fates. A female student was seen throwing a chair at a window, a glass window, and she's hurling this chair with as much force as she can muster. She would go as far back as she could, and then she would throw it with all of her strength, and it would just clunk onto the window and fall back down.
I'm guessing they're like pretty bulletproof. Who is this, like eyewitness from other kids who did survive, or did we have like live footage of what was happening here, and they were able to just see that happening as all this was going down? Like, I'm not sure. Well, we probably will end up figuring that out later, though.
She wasn't angry, but there was just pure desperation in her eyes. She could see on the very other side of this window were rescuers. They saw her, she saw them.
So there were rescuers there, and they were able to actually just visually see her inside.
And they did nothing but stare at her.
What? Why?
We're gonna get into it. I mean, this rescue, I don't even think you can call it a rescue.
We actually don't know how many people died here yet, because the title doesn't say. She usually says in the title, or maybe even on the thumbnail, I don't know if the thumbnail says it, but it says Coward Captain left 352 die, but we don't know how many actually died in this tragedy.
She realized that these people, these rescuers, they're not here to save her. All the people that she thought would be responsible for her safety, the captain of the boat, the rescue teams from the Korean National Coast Guard, they all abandoned her. They were watching her through the window, and it was very clear to her in her last moments that she was being left to die.
Okay, well, we said last moments, which implies that she's dead.
Imagine these are the very last realizations that you have in your life. April 16th, 2014.
Okay, quite a long time ago, like 11 years ago.
The Sewol ferry capsized off the coast of South Korea. There were 476 passengers. Most of them were high school students around the age of 16 years old from the same high school. They were on their way to Jeju Island when their boat started sinking on one side. And when a giant boat that carries 500 passengers, when it starts sinking, it's not something that goes unnoticed, nor is it something that happens very quickly. Soon, nearby boats and vessels and even countries start giving out lending helping hands. The Japanese Coast Guard asked if South Korea required assistance because they were right there. The US Navy had a massive vessel stationed nearby and offered to rush to the scene to help with rescue efforts.
Okay, so they offered to, but why did they not come, or why were they told not to?
South Korea denied all of their requests.
Because that's what I was assuming. They just were just like, nah, don't help.
They told news outlets that they had everything under control, that they were operating a full-scale rescue operation, and that majority of the passengers had already been rescued off the boat and they're being rushed to safety.
I assume just because of like dumb like political stuff, at least with the U.S. Navy being by, they're like, oh, we don't want their help because we don't want to owe them. So they would rather let these students die than gain assistance from another country. I feel like that's pretty common behavior by countries. I'm not saying specifically South Korea. I mean, like countries in general would possibly act this way,
What?
like saving face over. Is it save? Would it be saving face? Just like not, just not dealing with that at all. Like we don't want help from anybody else. We can do it ourselves, even if it's people get killed.
Wow.
South Korea told the world, hey, guys, these are our kids, and we're going to do everything to save our kids. But that could not have been further from the truth. The Sewol Ferry tragedy in South Korea would lead to the deaths of over 250 high school students,
Okay, so over 250 out of 350.
over 300 lives in total. It would lead to the president being impeached, the prime minister resigning, the Korean Coast Guard being disbanded.
But hold up, what? Roll me back. How? They actually got all this punishment?
The Ferry tragedy in South Korea would lead to the deaths of over 250 high school students, over 300 lives in total. It would lead to the president being impeached.
So the president of South Korea got impeached, which is like, wow.
The prime minister resigning.
Okay, they also have a prime minister. He's out of there as well.
The Korean Coast Guard being disbanded.
The Coast Guard being disbanded, what does that mean? They just all got fired and replaced, or there's just no longer a Coast Guard?
Multiple high-profile arrests, a billionaire suspicious suicide, a helicopter crash, hunger strikes, and a vice principal of a high school found hanging from a tree in the woods, dead.
So that because I guess what happened
So
to all the
let's
kids. So
get into the tragedy.
what we've seen is like the people at the top, like the government, doesn't really care about the people, from what we've gathered from like the two other Korean videos that we've seen. But like people seem to really care about other people in South Korea. Like other human beings that aren't part of the government, like take it really hard. Even if like they don't lose anybody. Like the in the Halloween tragedy, the shop owner who like broke down in the street that it happened in, and it was like trying to give an offering to. Like I'm assuming none of those people he knew. They weren't his children or anything. They just were just random people, and yet he was like breaking down over them. So it seems like people, down to earth people, just like regular average Joes and Janes, actually give a lot of care for humans. I mean, except for the bad apples here and there, sure. But like when it comes to the government just does not care about the people. But like the people themselves care a lot about their peers. Oh wait, hold on. I forgot. Her intro is like using potentially licensed music, so that's why you have to mute this part. But yeah, so it would make sense for a teacher to uh, do that if all their students died.
Full show notes are available at rottenmangopodcast.com. There's a South Korean news outlet called Newstapa, which you're like, I've never heard of this. I've heard of like SBS and NBC. Newstapa worked closely with the victims' families and their attorneys from the get-go. They had so much information on this tragedy that was being suppressed by mainstream news. They were the only ones that were standing up when everyone else was silent. It's estimated, and kind of surmised that without them, most of the evidence, most of these testimonies would have been completely lost.
I'm just realizing what I said at the beginning is kind of like, oof, I probably should have chose better words at the beginning with saying like I'm so just taxed from like watching basically almost 20 days straight of just like true crime and tragedy stuff. And like we're watching a video that has to do with people probably drowning, and I used the word drowning at the beginning, so oof, my bad. I'm just realizing that
They would have never been used.
that literally wasn't on purpose. It was just I just happened to be like, oh yeah, this is how I'm gonna say this, not realizing like, oh wait, hold on, we're doing a video that has to happen, not has to do with, I would assume, people drowning. So yeah, again, my bad.
So that was my primary source because they work directly with the families to get the truth out there. And, this isn't just a tragedy, it's a full scale cover up with the president, the most powerful person in that country, working with the media.
Yeah, I mean, like, the same thing as last time, right? With the Itaewon tragedy, they just seem to be keep covering it. But like, what is with the government? I mean, I know it must be pretty rough with North Korea right there, but again, it just seems that the government really does not care too much about the people all that much in South Korea. Again, outside of like actual, like the real, like anybody but the government, and then of course some people. Like there was that one police officer in uh, the Halloween tragedy who was like trying desperately to save people. So there's like your average person is probably has like quantum level empathy, but like the government has a negative empathy over there. I mean, you can say that with any other government, but it just seems so bad with in these videos when you get it into perspective. It's just like constant, just no empathy whatsoever. Let them
So
die,
please go
basically.
show support to New Stapa if you can. And with that being said, let's get into it. The parents of Tanwon High School are getting bombarded with calls. Phone calls, text messages, voice memos, pictures are being sent to them. And it was like a parent's worst nightmare. Think about your 16-year-old kid aboard a boat on a school field trip, and they're sending you cryptic text messages like, Mom, I'm sending you this because I'm scared I might not be able to say it later.
Yeah, I didn't even like think about them being able to have phones and send texts out of the boat. Same thing with the Itaewon. Same thing with the Halloween tragedy, right? I don't think it crossed my mind that people would be trying to text out of there and whatnot.
But I love you. And you're like, what's going on? You're like on a field trip. Another kid sent, hope we can meet again alive. Another student said, if I've wronged any of you guys, please forgive me. The parents start freaking out, but they're told by their kids that, hey, Mom, Dad, the boat is sinking, but rescue efforts are on their way. I think everyone's got it under control. They told us to stay in our cabins and put on our life jackets. Many parents told their kids, okay, well, stick with your friends. Don't be alone. Don't wander out alone. And good, that's good. They have everything under control. Just keep calm and do what they say. Do what they say. If you listen to them, everything will be okay. These words will haunt the parents forever. A lot of them couldn't even face living with the guilt because so many children would die from listening to what they said, from listening to what the captain told them to do. The ferry sank April 16th of 2014, but the story starts the day before on April 15th of 2014. So the students at Tanwon High School, this is like their annual trip to Jeju Island. They considered it a rite of passage, like a tradition for everyone.
Like, why, by the way, does it just seem like there's so many like tragedies happening in Korea? I think it's just because of most of her things are about Korea, right? So it just creates a weird. I forget the word. This phrase. Let me think. I think what I'm looking for is confirmation bias of like so many tragedies happening back to back to back to back in South Korea, but I don't think that it's just happening on like a regular basis, right? But I feel like it probably feels that way because again, like with the one, I don't know if it was the same old man, but someone during the Itaewon Halloween video was saying, "Why does this have to keep happening?" Something like that. Like, why do the kids keep being taken away? I don't think those are the exact words, but roughly that's what it was saying. Like, this just keeps happening. They just keep losing the children because of negligence. So just it creates this scenario where it feels like this just keeps happening over and over and over again.
Every single high school student looks, it's the sophomore class. They're so excited for this because, for one, their parents aren't going to be there. It's just their class and a couple of teachers. And I mean, just imagine the adrenaline and all this planning that goes into something like this. Any inconvenience that day that would have otherwise bothered the crap out of them, it didn't bother them anymore. I mean, they were waiting in line for hours at the port of Incheon, which is also where the international airport is. So Jeju Island is like the Hawaii of South Korea, and Incheon is actually on the northern side of.
I just remembered why Jeju Island sounds familiar to me. Because Jeju Island is the island, which they're showing you where it is, but Jeju Island is the island from Solo Leveling, because Solo Leveling takes place in Korea, right? The main character is a Korean thing. I think Jeju Island is the island where the ants are at, that they have to go and deal with if you haven't watched Solo Leveling. So yeah, I believe, if not crazy, Jeju Island is the ant island in Solo Leveling.
Of South Korea, and they would get on a boat, go all the way down the left coast of South Korea, and then get into the ocean, the Yellow Sea a little bit, and then they'll hit a tiny little island called Jeju Island. It is the biggest destination spot for South Koreans. It's beautiful. It's like a cultural mecca. There's so much, just there's a lot of fun stuff to do there. So these kids are like, yes, Jeju Island. Even when their ferry is delayed for 2.5 hours because of foggy conditions, they're like, that's fine. Are you kidding? Nothing is going to ruin this trip. This is the best trip of my life. It's a 300-mile trip by ferry. It takes 14 hours.
Okay, oof. So 14-hour trip over there. It's basically just a day, right? Yeah, I feel like you should be awake every day for about 14 hours. So just wake up on the boat, mess around, go to sleep, and then I guess if you're going to sleep as soon as you get there, it'd be kind of messed up. So you kind of want to go to sleep in the middle. So you wake up at Jeju.
But thankfully, they would be going down the coast of Korea most of the time, the left side of the coast. So they're going to have cell service.
Like I said, they have cell service, but yeah, I feel like it could be dangerous, like hugging the coast like that, though, right? Just scrape the boat and then, of course, sink. We don't know how it sunk yet, but that could have been an issue.
And it was outfitted like a cruise ship, meaning that there's dorm rooms with bunk beds, there's communal showers, a convenience store, a cafeteria, which for high schoolers, this sounds like a blast. Because they had cell service, a lot of them were able to reach out to their families, and those very phones would later document some of their last moments on board. There were 476 people on board the ferry, including the crew. Now, they board the ferry at 9 p.m. They were supposed to board 2.5 hours earlier, but like I said, a delay. It's
Like really late at night.
not that bad. I mean, the ferry is filled with 325 high school students, 14 teachers, 29 crew members, and about 100 or so other passengers. So these passengers are going to Jeju either on their own for vacation, or there were a lot of truck drivers.
Yeah, so they just happened to like book this ferry that isn't necessarily for obviously field trips. They just booked a bunch of tickets for the specific ride over there, and some other people just happen to also get on.
So they go and they get cargo off from this same boat and they drive it around Jeju. Then they get their truck back onto the boat and come back to Seoul, and it's like a back and forth, right? So
Sounds like a huge boat.
oh yeah, it's a massive boat. Here, can you pass me my iPad? I'm gonna show you pictures.
So you're saying there's not only people but also like vehicles on there.
Oh, so many vehicles, and it's actually a cargo ship. This is a cargo ship that loads on passengers on the side.
Okay, so we have crew area, which is barely anything. This here, passengers, whatever that entails, just people hanging out. Vehicle cargo decks. All this green area, which is most of the boat. I mean, I don't think we need to know where the water line is, but thanks. Additional cabins. Is that just this being outlined here? So I guess it's just there's other places to sleep here.
The Sewol
Oh.
ferry, if you want to get technical, is 75% profits from cargo movement and 25% profits from carrying of passengers. Most of the pictures you're going to find now are of it sinking, but here is it before it sank.
Oh wow, it's like a
cruise ship.
Like a cruise ship.
Yes,
Wow.
it's massive. So, I mean, a lot of these truck drivers were not very excited that they got onto the ferry with a bunch of high schoolers.
Yeah, I mean, that's just how it is. I would assume with anyone going out and then just seeing a field trip out, and it's like, oh, I have to deal with a bunch of kids in this area that I would otherwise going to have some fun in.
But these same truck drivers would help try and save a lot of these students later. So it's not like the high school bought out the entire ferry, nor was it a ferry that belonged to the school. There's a lot of people on here. So all 476 people, including the crew,
I wonder how much the school had to pay to get all these kids on board. Like, did they pay for all the tickets, or was it like the parents had to pay? Because I feel like that is something that might happen. Like, hey, we have the field trip plans. You're gonna have to pay for the tickets for your kids, because that's like the only way they're gonna end up paying. Or maybe this school is just like really rich and could afford it, or tax write-off. Maybe I don't know if schools can get tax write-offs like this. I don't know anything about that part, but I don't know if it would feel worse that if parents bought tickets and their child perished, and it's almost like you bought your you paid for your child to perish. So I don't know if that would feel worse if that's something that would have crossed someone. I assume that definitely would have crossed their minds if they did have to pay for this. So it's not the money part. That's not what I'm saying. But it's like you paid to have them perish, which probably makes it feel even worse that it's like you personally did it yourself. Like it was your fault that they died. That's what I'm saying.
they board the ferry and they start their journey. Now, the night of the 15th was pretty calm. Okay, so this is a picture that the kids posted or taken by one of the victims.
A lot of suitcases.
Just of them boarding during the foggy night. And it just looks like they're so excited. And nothing climactic happens, which is good. Dinner is served. There's fireworks that are launched from the deck. And there's pictures of that too. At night, the passengers, they all go to sleep in their cabins. Now, the high school was pretty good about booking rooms on one level for all of the boy students and then for the girl students upstairs, right? So they had different levels. They all go to sleep around 11-ish. And the next morning, at around 11 a.m., they should be arriving in Jeju Island. So it's like you go to sleep, you wake up, you have breakfast, and 11 a.m. you're at Jeju. They're so excited for this. Now, 7:30 a.m. is when everything starts to slowly unravel.
Okay, 7:30 a.m. That was like just figuring out how long it had been. So if we're thinking about it correctly, from 9 to 7:30, then they still had a few more hours before they would have actually made it to Jeju. So they couldn't just have like forced a crash, right? Since if they were pretty close to Jeju, they could have just like full speed ahead to the coast and hope that the coast catches the boat. But obviously that clearly was not a thing they could have done, since it is still several hours away from Jeju.
Helmsman Cho and third mate Park. So these are two of the people that are going to be steering the boat now. They take over for the shift so the overnight crew can go into their cabins and take a nap or go to sleep. The helmsman is the person who's going to be steering and driving the ship, if you will. So Helmsman Cho, he's at the bridge, which is basically like the cockpit of the boat. And he's, doing all these commands. And the captain was off duty in his room.
Okay, so the bridge is the driving.
Also, I haven't thought about this before. Like, if this, because he's on mic too, her husband, alleged husband, but I didn't think about whether or not he's actually in the same room as her. But I guess he probably is, since sometimes she looks this way, and I'm guessing that he's over here behind the camera somewhere. Just something that I just thought about. we're probably going to roll back to, but yeah, 'cause she's looking at the camera sometimes, but she looks over here, and then she did ask for like her iPad at one point, so I'm guessing he is over here somewhere off camera.
Which is basically like the cockpit of the boat. And he's, doing all these commands, and the captain was off duty in his room.
Okay, so the bridge is the driving room.
Yes.
Okay.
30 minutes later, around 8 a.m., breakfast is served in the cafeteria for all the passengers, the crew, and anybody else. 8:20 a.m., autopilot is switched off to manual steering.
The autopilot is off at 8 something.
8:20 a.m.
8:20. So that we're over here, so we still have like a couple hours, 2 hours or so.
Autopilot is switched off to manual steering. Autopilot off, manual steering on. Just 7 minutes later, the Sewol is sailing through the Mengol Channel. Now, the Mengol Channel is very pertinent to...
Where are we saying that's at? Because it's not pointing it out. Is it this? Oh, wrong thing. Is it this here? So are they like weaving through here? Because I feel like that's rough. Like, they're saying they're like skirting around the coast. I feel like they should have been like that. Because I'm assuming this here is Jeju, right? But if they're going through this, that seems pretty dangerous. This is almost like an archipelago, right? With all these different little islands clammed together. But yeah, I don't know, because we're not getting any direction. I'm assuming they're cutting straight through here to Jeju.
To this story, there are other routes to take to get to Jeju without going through this particular channel. I mean, it really only saves like 7 miles off of your trip, but this channel it's not some sort of urban legend where ships go missing and it's like a terrifying place.
Bermuda Triangle, maybe?
It is a commonly used route, but it's not calm. It's not that safe. It's a little unpredictable. It actually has one of the most rapid and unpredictable currents in the Korean peninsula. It's got these tidal shifts, meaning that you have to be super, super careful when you're passing through this channel. Some areas of the channel have rock hazards. Some random areas have shallow waters. But Sewol was traveling through a part where it was pretty calm. Conditions were relatively calm. Even CCTV footage shows kids and truck drivers socializing on deck, finishing up their breakfast. Most of the kids were still asleep in their cabins, if I'm being honest, because, it's very early. As of 8:40 a.m., everything is going well.
At 8:40, everything is still fine. So again, a few hours away from Jeju.
Students are busy. Passengers are busy avoiding the students. Crew members are busy working. Within 9 minutes, everything would change. 8:49 a.m., 2 crew members that were in charge of steering the ship decide to manually steer the ship 15 degrees to the left.
To the left in this case would mean towards the shore. Because we don't have a picture up here, but let's say this is Korea and they were driving along like this, which means the left side of the ship is over here and this is the right side. So they steered it this way for some reason. I don't know why, but who knows if we'll ever know that.
Which is a well-known fact to all crew members aboard this Sewol that they cannot steer this particular vessel more than 5 degrees in any direction.
Okay, so even then, the boat can't handle being turned too hard like that either. It's not just the fact that they're steering towards the shore of South Korea, it's that the boat can't handle that, I'm guessing, being it turned too hard.
Mainly because of the amount of cargo it was holding. So why did this Sewol ferry even start to sink?
Okay, so if we're going to think about this, if they swerve too far to the left, all the cargo might slide to the left of the boat, causing all the weight to accumulate into one side, then that might cause it to sink, is what I'm going to assume.
Sewol was known, like I said, to be a cargo ship.
Yeah, all the vehicles in the cargo are now, if we have a boat here, let's say this is a boat, and we have all the cargo in the middle, like it all pushed to the left side of the boat when it turns too far. Like if you're not understanding what I'm saying, like all the cars and cargo slowly drag themselves that way inside. So now all the weight is on this side, and there's no weight over here. I don't know how messy this is, but sure. I'm just using my mouse. I'm not using like a tablet, even though I have several tablets. I'm just using my mouse to do this.
25% of their profits were just from passengers. So being incredibly irresponsible and greedy, they would almost every single time load way more cargo than was legally allowed. It caused massive dangerous conditions on the boat. And when they made this sharp turn, which is supposed to only be 5 degrees to the left, they went 15 degrees. And none of this cargo, none of these cars, they had almost 200 vehicles on this cargo ship. All of them slammed to the left
Yep.
because
I mean, like I said, that's exactly what's going to happen. They're just all the weight of the ship's going to be on one side. It's going to cause it to tip that way.
none of them are being tied down. Side note, when you read official reports, it'll read that the boat was listing 30 degrees to port. Now, what that means, and this is from online research, I'm not like a boat girl. I'm actually terrified of cruises.
Boat girl. I never heard that phrase before.
But
It's like a horse girl, but for boats. You're just in love with boats.
listing, when a boat is listing, it means that it's leaning to the left. Not going to the left, but leaning to the left. When it says listing to port, it means to the left. When it says listing to starboat, it means listing to the right.
It's just starboard.
Listing how much degree?
30 degrees.
30 degrees.
Yes.
That's a lot.
30 degrees. And not to confuse it with trimming, okay? Just a little quick,
What
I
is
guess, boat lesson.
trimming?
But trimming is when the ship tips forward or backward. And then rolling is when a ship is moving from side to side trying to find balance. So these are terms that you'll see a lot in the official reports.
I'll just like drawing degrees here. Because obviously this is a 90-degree angle. This is 45. So we're somewhere around here for 30. This is how far to the side it was bent. Is about here, somewhere around here, give or take. Obviously, I can't like just do that in real time, get a perfect 30-degree angle, but it's somewhere over here.
At one point, it was rolling to try and find balance, but ultimately, it was listing to the left, 30 degrees. None of this is great, but 30 degrees list doesn't mean capsizing. It doesn't automatically mean it. And it gets technical, but I'm going to try and describe it as best as possible. If the cargo had been tied down, it probably might have balanced the boat back out.
Probably.
The boat might have rolled and then eventually become stable again. Now, even if it didn't become stable again, there is something called ballast water. Okay, this is going to get very technical. All boats want to have a low center of gravity. The parts closest to the water needs to be the center of gravity. So did you know most boats are filled with water? It sounds counterintuitive, but it's something called ballast water, which is just to bring the center of gravity, right?
Yeah.
They had like no ballast water. The center of
What?
gravity was at the top of the boat.
Why? Oh, so they can load more cars.
Yes. So there's
I was
no
gonna be like, why are you not having your ballasts up? But of course, gotta make that money. Why is it always in? I mean, it's always this. I was gonna say, why is it always South Korea? Again, we've only watched 3 videos, and they've all been about South Korea, so we can't say why is it always about. Why is South Korea always about money? But it's literally just that's just the name of the game of humanity. It's always about money. Like, give me a second, real quick. I'm gonna cut right now. All right, yeah. Just roll that back of it a second.
the boat.
Why? Oh, so they can load more cars.
Yes. So there's no way that this boat
my
is gonna
gosh.
fix itself, balance itself out. No way. Let me show you some footage.
You know, I can envision it as, you know, sometimes you throw a boat on the water, it will float. And then I'm just imagining the like filling that boat to the brim of sinking and floating.
Yes.
So it's like anything moves, it will start sink.
Precisely. That's literally what this boat is doing. This is from Black Box when the boat leaned initially.
The black box, which we're talking about the boat that wait, why is he getting to see it? Hello? Can we see
So
what he's
this-
seeing? Hello? Can we see that? Also, by the way, what I was doing with that cut real quick was I was just plugging in my Wacom tablet so I can actually get better accurate lines. Not that it matters too much. It's still gonna be chicken scratch.
This is also why it's so pertinent that when you're aboard a boat or a plane, they're tying down all the cargo. That's why they're so particular about it. If you've ever brought your car on a boat, they tie it down. So all of this cargo, all of these vehicles slam to the left, and this boat is not going to balance out. This boat is 100% going to capsize, meaning it's going to sink.
I think it's gonna just keep going to the left. I don't know if there's anything they could have done. Of course, if you grabbed all the humans and made them go to the right side of the boat, I don't know if that would have been enough weight uh, in conjunction with like what was on the other ship. Maybe it would have slowed the progression if everybody moved to the right side of the ship. Of course, there's no way they're going to do that. I mean, they could just announce it on the, I guess, assume they would have a speaker system. Hey, everyone, we're having issues. Everybody move to the right side of the boat to try to balance it out and stay there for the entirety of the trip. And that might have bought them enough time to make it to Jeju, but I doubt it.
Now, the water is very cold in April. It was about 54 degrees Fahrenheit. It only takes 10 minutes for you to start feeling the effects of hypothermia. You're not going to die in 10 minutes, but most of the time. But you start feeling loss of dexterity. Your fingers go numb. You're starting to, your teeth are clattering. And full-blown hypothermia happens after about 2 hours. So right at this moment, the boat it leans, and the engines of the boat are cut. The off-duty Captain Lee Chun-seok, he starts running. He's like, I gotta figure out what's going on. Some crew members also run to the bridge of the boat and they're like, what's going on? Now, they're trying to assess the situation. And when a boat this size starts to list or even starts sinking, it's not like an earthquake. Not every single passenger is gonna jerk up and go, we need to evacuate this boat.
Yeah, I mean, most people aren't even going to notice. They're going to be like, yeah, the boat's slightly leaning to the left, but we're on the ocean, we're on the water. There's nothing wrong with that, right? That's what people, I would assume, would assume themselves.
It feels dangerous, but it almost feels like turbulence on a plane. You feel like, okay, I need to wait it out and it's going to be fine. You never really hit turbulence and you're like, this plane is going down. So that's kind of how everyone was feeling except for the crew because they knew better. 8:52 a.m., just 2 minutes after the boat starts leaning to the left about 30 degrees, an emergency call is made by a student, Choi Tok-ha. Choi reported that the Sewol was starting to capsize. He was the first 911 call, and that the water was coming into the decks. He's like, something's going on. I'm on the decks, and this is dangerous.
So again, we've already known that when people call the police, they don't take it seriously. So is this going to be not 3 for 3, because I don't think anything happens with the death mall, but at least with Itaewon, they did not take any of this seriously. So are they going to take this seriously? They're going to assume it's a kid prank because we don't have Halloween as an excuse anymore. So it's like, are they going to take him seriously or not?
He was one of the few that understood the severity of the situation, and he was probably confused because he could hear ringing through the PA system, like the intercom system, the speakers on the boats. Do not move, just stay where you are. It's dangerous if you move, stay where you are.
Again, I would have at least said, hey, move to the right side a bit. Like, stay still. Can you stay still on the right side of the boat, please?
Every single student and passenger was told to stay put. And now, all hell breaks loose. Crew members are calling so many different people. There's the Jeju Vessel Traffic Service, Korean Coast Guard, Jeju Coast Guard, Mokpo Coast Guard Station, their company executives. There's so many different people that this communication system is just bonkers. The fact that they don't have a system in place of like, if an emergency happens, this is who I call, is crazy to me. Nobody was getting anything done. So much time initially is wasted in these key moments. At 9:07 a.m., the crew confirmed to authorities the ferry is capsizing, and they confirmed that they needed help from the Korean Coast Guard.
Okay, so 9 o'clock, a few minutes after 9, we've I made the point to say, hey, we're capsizing. This is still 2 hours away from Jeju, assuming they were on time before the engines cut. So yeah, I'm assuming they're just in the middle of the water. There is like a huge gap of water there between South Korea and Jeju, so they're probably just in the middle of that at that point. And I doubt the ship is coasting, right? If it's moving, it would be just moving with the current, wherever the current's taking it, but it probably is just a sitting duck right now with the engines turned off.
They stated the ship's angle made evacuation impossible. Now, here's where it gets crazy.
The ship's angle, I'm guessing because it's 30 degrees listing.
Allegedly, none of these authorities knew that there were 500 passengers on this, well, close to 500 passengers on this boat. That's what they claim. I don't believe
Yeah, that's what they claim. Okay, sure. Yeah.
it for a second, but that's what they claim.
Wait, who claimed that? The
All
police?
the Coast Guards, yeah. They're like, no one told us. We just thought it was the crew. We thought it was a cargo ship. Get out of here, because the Sewol was well known to be a passenger cargo ship. So they say the ferry is about to roll over, meaning it was listing to the left, but because it was taking in so much water, it was practically bonk flat onto the left, and now it was going to flip over and capsize.
Wow.
So it's not even sinking just to the bottom like this. It's going to be completely inverted. The bottom is going to be the top. The Coast Guard tells the crew on Sewol to inform any passengers, if there are any, to put on their life jackets. But they just say, oh, sorry, our PA system is down. It
What?
wasn't down.
Yeah, it was like we just heard them talking on the overcom, right? To be like, hey, stay where you are, stay still, don't move. So that's obviously what is with the lying. Everyone just has to save face
It's
for no
just
reason.
bizarre. Okay.
So why did they lie?
Yeah, so it was like down at one point, but then it comes back up, and then a customer service rep is like playing that, or like a customers relations crew member is playing the message of like, do not move. There was like no communication. Now the Coast Guard is like, okay, well, if it's down, then go personally tell the passengers. The crew member is like, okay, I'm gonna do that. He walks out of the command center and walks around a bit and comes back being like, I did that. He did not do that. He just lied. He just blatantly lied to authorities and said, yeah, I told all the passengers to put on their life jackets.
What?
Yeah.
Do they not understand what the hell's going on?
No, they do not. The Coast Guard tries to tell Captain Lee that you need to start thinking and acting fast. They have deployed a vessel. There was a patrol vessel nearby that was coming in about 10 minutes. There was a helicopter that would get there in about 1 minute. And Lee said, yeah, that's not enough to save everybody. Like,
But they didn't tell them exactly how much everybody is. They're just like, oh yeah, there's a lot of people here. That's not enough, but
there's more passengers than that. Because one helicopter, you could save maybe a dozen people max. No, maybe like 6, 7 people.
yeah, so like a dozen. That's too much, depending on the helicopter size. I mean, like, I would think like 2 people, 3, double that, maybe make it as cramped as possible. 6, but then like you're having to think about weight. How much weight can these things actually carry? So yeah, like the 6, sure, but like 12, that's too many. You're getting 6 out of like 500.
People. Keep this part in mind, because later everyone goes and says, oh, when he said passengers, we thought maybe a couple of passengers.
Wow. I mean, right now everything falls on the captain, right?
Oh yeah, but
It's going down. Like, what are you doing? Every second, what are you
yes,
doing?
Exactly, and you're gonna die when you find out what he was doing. So the passengers up until this point,
We're gonna die when we find out. So again, he was the saving face, right?
exactly, and you're gonna die when you find out what he was doing. So the passengers up until this point are still being told to stay where they are and do not move. And some of the very first people rescued was the captain and a few of his crew.
I mean, of course. I mean,
그러나 구조당국이 가장 먼저 구조한 사람은 배를 버린 선장과 선원이었다.
The captain was rescued by one of the small Coast Guard boats, and he wore ordinary clothes to disguise himself as a passenger.
I was like, what? Why would they not know? I mean, obviously the whole ruling is, like everyone says, the captain has to go down with the ship, right? The ship goes down, you gotta die with it. Which is, I mean, that's kind of crazy unless, one, it's your fault and there's people on board that need to get off first. But I feel like, what was that one ship? I feel like I could maybe remember it because it's like a silly name, right? But I don't know. It's the one that Incognito channel does. I think it was them. The Cost of Concordia. There we go. I just had to like think about it hard enough. Like the Cost of Concordia, that ship. Didn't the captain jump ship immediately too? So it's like they always say in like stories and movies the captain has to go down with the ship, but like I feel like that never happens in real life. The captain always is the first to bail and leave everybody else to die.
Oh my god.
Once he was rescued, he made no attempts, and he actually was rescued, I don't want to say before the chaos, because right now is chaos, but he was rescued at a point where it wasn't just utter all hell breaks loose and there are people drowning and dying right now. He's like, okay, well, I think chaos is about to hit, so I'm gonna leave.
That's so fucking despicable.
Yes. Yeah, he's actually one of the most hated people in all of South Korea. the whole nation. He's alive.
Well, is hated. Yeah, I was gonna say. Of course, I was about to say he must be alive then if he's hated. So she's saying it as if he's still alive, and he's still alive.
He disguised himself as a passenger, and once he was rescued, this is even more despicable. He gets on the Coast Guard vessel, and he doesn't let anyone know that he is the captain and that he has vital information that would help them in rescuing passengers. He doesn't relay any information to them when time and information is the most important thing to save lives. He made no attempts to tell them how many passengers, where they were, what the PA system was doing. He did none of that. He didn't tell them that they were being told to stay in their rooms where they were effectively trapped inside this sinking boat. None of that. There is about 20 minutes of footage from some of the kids' last moments. And one of the biggest, I guess, video files that were actually shared by the father of the victim. And he said that he wanted the world to know what actually happened to these kids. So it was filmed by a Park Soo-hyung and Kim Dong-hyuk. They were both 16. Best friends. They were both on the level 3 of the boat, which is where most of the male students were dorming. These rooms had bunk beds, about 4 boys per room. Soo-hyun and Dong-hyuk, they were 2 of the last ones to start the day. They're hanging out in the cabin, sitting on the edge of their cabin, like bunk bed, when they suddenly feel the boat lurch to the left. And at first, everyone's confused. But like I said, it feels like airplane turbulence. They're not freaking out yet. Then they start overhearing the speakers starting blaring. Do not move. Stay put. It's dangerous if you move. Just stay where you are. If you're watching the video on YouTube or Spotify, I'm going to play you a clip of the video. You can actually hear the PA system in the background repeating, "Stay where you are," over and over again.
Because a man is tilting. Somebody help me. Please stay put and prepare in the event of an accident. Obviously the PA. This is not a simulation. This is a real life thing. Somebody go fetch life jackets. Never knew it would tilt like this. Who wants to drop dead here? I don't get what's going on. The fact that they are telling us to wear life jackets, doesn't that mean the ship is sinking?
So the boys on the 3rd floor are freaking out. Some students who were on the deck come to the cabins to let everyone know to put on their life jackets. The video footage from these students are stitched together to be about 20 minutes, but it's probably the most raw footage I've ever seen in my life. Like, it's not necessarily the most emotional in the typical sense, meaning these kids aren't crying, they're not banging on the windows to get out, but you just see how real and relatable the situation is. Like the way that these kids, at first, they don't think the ship is going to sink, because who thinks that? You know, they're kind of joking around, but they're putting faith in the adults and the captain and the PA system, and they're kind of playing around with each other. And I find that it's a way that they're coping with it. And then eventually you hear that humor kind of dissipate, and it gets replaced by them saying, "I don't want to die." But they're still trying to keep this almost cool front in front of their friends. You can hear other kids trying to check up on their friends and contacting their family members back home on their phones. But near the end, you can hear and see most of them start to feel very, very scared. You hear students say things like, "Will the water really leak in? The shaking is getting serious. It's tilting so much this way, I can't even move. This is getting ridiculous. I want to get off. I really want to leave. Am I going to die? It's not going to go down any further, right? Like, what the hell is going on? Hurry and rescue us. What's wrong with these people? I don't understand what's happening. If they're telling us to wear life vests, does that mean the ship is sinking?"
Save me. Do not move from where you are and prepare for safety concerns. It's not really submerged. Shaking is no joke. That's just leaving. I want to get off. I really mean it. Lots of commotion and confusion. Allegedly a cuss word there, I guess. Someone get me a life jacket. We would like to inform our passengers, once again, for those on board, don't move, grab something to hold on to. Like, again, they're just telling them to stay in the boat, get their life jackets, and just, like, be stuck inside essentially a building that's sinking, instead of getting onto the deck. And hopefully surviving up there. Of course, that's not too good either, just because, I mean, if you know how the Titanic sank, depending on how big it is, it will actually just vacuum suck you down into the water once it's completely sunk itself. So we are spinning to the side, though, So if they could have gotten to the deck as it was falling over, and then they, depending on how long it took the ship to do like flip onto its bottom, they could have all been on the deck. Then as soon as the side completely hit the water, they could have all fallen into the water and then possibly swam away and not got vacuum sucked in. Because I don't know if the spinning of the ship to put the bottom onto the top would have had enough suction to suck them underneath the boat. I don't know how the physics work there. Smells like boiled eggs. We don't want to die. Should I call my mom? Don't move, never move. No more life jackets. Put your life jacket on, I think as someone said there. What are you doing? The zipper is stuck. Mine is broken too. I don't have a life jacket here. I love you, Mom and Dad. Mom and Dad, what about my little brother? Don't ever let him go on a school trip. Please don't go on a school trip if you don't want to end up like your brother, okay? Mom, I love you. Dad, I love you. Where's the
Near the
teacher?
end, one of the students even screams, "Let me live. Who's going to take care of my mom and sister? Let me live." And now all throughout this, you hear the PA system in the back. "Dear passengers, a guidance announcement. Those of you who are inside the ship, please do not move. Try to find a pole you can hold on to." The kids also note that they start smelling something very bad. They wonder out loud if it's gas because it smells like boiled eggs, which is typically a gas leak scent.
Who's talking in the system?
It's like an automated message.
Oh,
Yeah.
nobody's even like
No.
talking.
Oh, yeah, no. Most of the crew are like, "Bye."
Here's a button. They press a button
Yeah.
and then they dipped.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean, they just dipped. And just like see if I can say what I was like saying earlier. We want. So let's say this is the ship again on its side. So let's add like a fake sail there. So here's the ship that's fully on its side, and we have like the water here, right? So I was saying maybe if they, like the kids were able to get on the deck here, they would have gotten into the water here and then just been able to get away, like swim as fast as they can this way. The problem is, how long does it take the boat to, from this position, spin so that the bottom here is in the air? Like, how long will it take? Oh, we can't even see what I'm doing. Yeah, how long is it going to take this to swerve that way? And is this action of it swerving this way going to suck them down underneath the boat? Because that's always something I feel you have to worry about when you're dealing with boats. Because of the Titanic, you have to be worried about being sucked underneath the boat and not being able to get out once you get sucked under. It just vacuumed down into the bottom of the ocean.
And it's very heartbreaking because you just hear that playing while these kids are repeating, "We don't want to die." So more phone calls were placed between passengers and police. The students are even telling the police, "Please, the ship is sinking. I don't want to die. We've been told to stay put. We're not supposed to move." Another student can be heard saying, "Really, once the water starts coming in, we really got to get out." And another student says, No. Like, it says we shouldn't move." There are a few things to gather from these students' last moments. They're trying to stay strong. They're trying to keep each other company. And if you listen and you speak Korean and you listen to the whole clip, a lot of these kids are thinking about their families, or a lot of them are asking, "Wait, has anybody checked on the girls on the other floor? Or has anyone checked on the teachers?" Like, trying to see if their friends and even their teachers are okay. Some of them were joking around that this was the Titanic and sang the theme song, which I saw a lot of like old people be like, "What's wrong with kids?" But that's
how humor works, right? Humor allegedly was invented to deal with dark times. So joking about bad stuff is just what humor is meant to be for. It's to joke about all the bad things so it makes it easier to deal with. So that's literally what humor was invented for, was a situation like this.
how they cope. They followed the rules. They followed the advice of the adults who they believed were doing the right thing. So they stayed put. They trusted the captain. Even teachers were going around dorm to dorm to make sure that these kids didn't go because they thought, again, it was in the best interest and the safety and welfare of the children for them to stay put. One student texted his mom, "Please, if I don't survive, Mom and Dad, I love you." Another one texted his parents, "Mom, Dad, younger sister, I love you guys so much, and please don't ever let my little sister go on a school trip ever." These are some of the kids' last words. So, key points. They're told to stay in their cabin. They're told not to evacuate or come to the deck. They also noticed that some of the zippers on many of the life vests were broken.
Yeah, some of them said the zipper was stuck as that wasn't working in that little video that we had. Again, another point that I was saying earlier, even though it seems like the government and a lot of people in power, we'll say the captain's like a person in power, don't like have negative empathy. Like everyone else has like quantum level empathy. Again, like these kids just saying, they love the parents, their siblings, don't come on a school trip, etc. Caring about other people. So again, like even if I'm saying like if it seems like the South Korean government has like no empathy, everyone else in the country seems to have the exact opposite. Like they have so much.
Not only that, but one of the boys said, "I just discovered something really horrible. This life vest says it was made in 1994.
1994, we are in the year 2014, so we are 20 years past this thing being made, right?
Here, look, it's written in the back. Made in 1994. They didn't even have enough life vests to go around. So a lot of the kids were sacrificing life vests to each other and to their friends. They were asking if the teachers and the girls all had life vests. The videos were captured on Kim Dong-yeop's phone, and he would not make it out alive. So while this is the situation inside the boat, mainstream media at the same time,
Okay, before we get to the media, so can we have nearly 500 people on the boat, right? And I think, was it 200 and something people died? So a little more than half. I'd assume a lot of the crew, like 100 people, were just randos, and then some of the crew. So it kind of just seems like most of the children, well, I mean, literally almost all of the children, right? Because there's 350 students and like 250 something died, right? So yeah, literally most of the kids didn't make it out, and it feels like most of the people who weren't the students are the ones who survived, the adults, I would assume.
imagine this is happening at the same time. Please, just the irony of all of this. Mainstream media starts reporting that all passengers have been rescued. It sounds stranger than fiction. I don't even know how to explain to you what they thought that they were going to get out of this, what the politicians thought was going to happen when...
I'm guessing South Korean media is what she's talking about here. They all been saved. Again, didn't someone... Was it the mainstream media here? Or did the captain say everybody was fine? Or everyone's saved? Like, I feel like someone else said everything is fine. And thus, mainstream media took that, latched onto that, and was like, oh yeah, okay, everybody's fine. Granted, usually mainstream media wants to say the most tragic thing ever, so that's slightly out of character for mainstream media. But then again, like I was saying, we want to save face, right? And we want to make it seem like, oh yeah, we did it, we saved everybody, everybody's fine. We don't need anybody's help. We were talking about the Coast Guard and the American ship saying, hey, we'll help. And like, no, we got it. Like, they just want to keep saving face. We don't need help. We don't need any favors. Because they don't want to have to owe anybody, even at the cost of losing hundreds of people.
This all came out to be lies and false, but it's insane. If this happened in a movie, it'd be unbelievable. There were reports that all passengers were rescued. Tanwon High School parents let out a sigh of relief. Oh my God, okay. That cryptic text, my child is fine. They're probably not responding to my texts or my calls because they're probably on like a Coast Guard vessel right now and they're busy, but that's fine. They start noticing something fishy though. They're trying to get in contact with their children, no responses. They contact other parents and they're like, no, we also haven't gotten any responses. And when they watch the news very carefully, the numbers aren't adding up. And it's not like some sort of conspiracy, but the government would report that they rescued all the passengers. Then a little bit later, they'd be like, okay, well, we have rescued majority of the passengers. Then it'd be like, oh, and these are not the exact figures, but it would be something like, we rescued 200 passengers. And then later they'd be like, we rescued 150 passengers. So which one is it? Who are you rescuing? How do you unrescue people? You're a powerful nation and you can't even do basic arithmetic? Like, what's going on? So frustrated, the parents, they start traveling to Chindo Island. Now, Chindo Island is the closest island to where the crash happened. Not Jeju Island. Chindo Island is very close to the southern tip of South Korea. Jeju Island, you'd have to go further out into the Yellow Sea. The parents...
Yeah, I'm guessing it's just on that edge, around that edge where the archipelago-ish looking area was, the bunch of islands that are hanging off of South Korea.
all decide to use the Chindo gym to be their coordination place. And I truly don't even know how to explain what I'm going to say next. But first of all, the people organizing this gym to make sure everyone is in the right place were the parents of the children on the boat. They arrived, there's no organization, it's chaos, so they take it upon themselves to make sure everything is organized. Not the Coast Guards, not the local officials, the police, the parents take charge. The rescue teams had these giant whiteboards on the...
I don't want to see what that said.
The parents take charge. The rescue
There is a list of survivors next to the podium. Please check the list first.
teams had these giant whiteboards on the front with a list of names of passengers who have been rescued. And of course, parents are flocking and praying and wishing that it's their child on the list.
Jindo Gymnasium was turning into hell. I don't know if there's any subtitles. I missed it if there was.
But these families are getting frustrated. One parent grabs a mic and says, "Here, I can clearly see my younger sister's name on the list of survivors. It says she was rescued, but my sister isn't here. So where is my sister? Who on earth made this list?"
Here, I clearly see the name of my sister on the list. It does say she was rescued, but my sister is not here. And this is family of the missing, obviously. Who on earth made this list?
So these are authorities being like, here's all the
Each government institution was giving away mixed up briefings without a control tower.
people we rescued, and the parents are like, we don't believe you because where are our children then?
I was just letting her
Here's all the
talk so
people
we
we
can get...
rescued,
The exact number of victims and survivors were still unaccounted for.
and the parents are like, we don't believe
Families who were desperately waiting for the news of survivors had to struggle between hope and despair.
you because where are our children then?
If only I knew what's going on at least. There's nothing I can do about it because I don't even know what's going on over
Another
there.
parent screamed, please, just get us a boat so we can save our kids. Get us a boat. We don't care how much it costs. I will pay for it.
Please get us a boat so we can save our kids with it. Get us a boat, no matter how much it costs, I'll pay. They are present at the scene. We will do our best. This is a government official. They say they don't even see the ferry. Only the police are circling around there. Nothing there is being done. No divers, nothing. They say they have found many bodies now. We need to go to the harbor. Chief of families of Sewol ferry victims. Let's go. We must go, all of us.
Another one said, I feel like the parents, including myself, are here waiting for our children to die. We want an answer from the person in charge. Why are orders not going through and nothing's being done? You guys are clearly lying and kicking responsibility to others. Another parent screams, let's all go together. Let's all go together. The parents are rushed to the harbor, and to show you how they still had this unfailing hope of a parent, they all grabbed blankets on the way out. They said when their kid gets saved, they want to make sure that they have something to keep them warm. They all go to the harbor and they wait. There's nothing that they can do. Side note, police were lined up at the edge of the harbor to prevent family members from going into the water, whether to try and rescue a kid or to...
Yeah, someone might even just jump in there and just swim into the ocean. Even if it's like miles, they probably would try to do that.
in a desperate attempt. A parent screamed, "I want to jump in the water with them. My loved one is under the water. Anger is not enough. If I don't have my younger child, I'm going to jump in the water thinking about my child in the water. How can I, as a parent, continue to live, eat, and drink? I hate myself." Someone near a mom tried to put one of the blankets on one of the moms because it was so cold. And she cried, "What good is it staying warm when the kids are freezing out there? They're freezing. What good is it for us to stay warm?" Not a single government official was at that harbor. Nobody responded to the family's frustrations or questions.
They said helicopter was dispatched, so they said, "I thought they were going to be rescued. It is nighttime. This happened at 9 in the morning, so it should be daytime." So this is like the night of that day, I'm guessing, and I'm assuming they're all gone by this point. What good is out here? What good is staying warm when the kids are freezing? They are freezing, and what good for us? What good for us to stay warm?
Wait, this is nighttime?
Yeah,
It's been a day?
it's been a day.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, we already know the timeline of this. This was happening in the morning, so it's already like at least 12 hours later, and they still haven't done anything.
We're gonna go back into the rescue. Just you wait.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so again, I mean, the families resorted to asking reporters on what's going on, but none of the reporters, most of the reporters at the harbor at this point were mainstream media reporters. The only ones there that actually cared about helping the parents was Newstapa, which is why I think a lot of parents continue to work with Newstapa. These are some of the most devastating clips I've seen. I mean, just the desperation in these parents, like their grief, their worry, their anger, and so many of them it's a lot.
I have an idea. I want the reporters to come to the scene with us and spread the truth to the public.
So let's talk about the rescue, because you mentioned, like, how is this nighttime? So the rescue that government officials and media said was a success was not a success at all. The Coast Guard helicopter was dispatched to the sinking ferry at 9:10 a.m. They arrive at around 9:30 a.m. 2 rescuers come down and rescue 6 passengers via helicopter.
Again, I don't know if that's the captain or not, because it looked like the captain left on a boat. But again, a helicopter is not going to do much of anything for that many people. I mean, unless, could you have like them just attached to a rope underneath it and just have them all linked to this rope, and then you could probably drag way more people than like that. Just stay close to the water and just like, fly away like that. So they're being dragged along with the helicopter in the water, but at least they're being dragged, and you can get like a few more people.
And these passengers were like on the deck. So they're like waving, they're visible, they're outside. Now, at 9:32, the helicopter starts communicating with the Blue House.
Yeah, we're at 9:32. Again, this happens at like at 9:07 or something, so it's almost half an hour later.
And the Blue House is like the White House, and they keep asking, is the situation serious? The helicopter says, the ferry is tilted and currently being flooded. It hasn't sunken yet. Can you please send over a video? Now, this is being heavily criticized because time is of the essence. Such an urgent incident is taking place, and really, I don't know what to say because it casually feels like the Blue House is saying, "Picture it didn't happen." And sure, maybe videos can help them get a better understanding of what's going on, but if this is the government responsible for running a literal company, they better be more competent than this. They keep calling back to the helicopter, not giving commands, not doing a full-scale command center operation, but going, "Did you send the videos yet?" Just nonstop, over and over and over again, wasting time asking for videos. And what's even crazier is that the helicopter is like, "Well, we didn't want to take any videos in case it gets leaked." But the Blue House is like,
Leaked? Like, who cares?
"It's fine, text it to my phone."
What?
Here, there's footage.
Okay, so I can't tell if the bottom of the ship is cracked open, because you see all the debris there underneath the ship. Like, there's a bunch of debris here. I don't know if that's just from the top of the ship that somehow got underneath it, or if there is like, you know, a hole here that we can't see. I'm not sure. Okay, we are on the side, so in this situation, all of the passengers are probably flush against this side of the boat. At this point, again, if they could somehow, I mean, how easy would it be to navigate out of here? Like I'm just thinking about, it's like where are the doors? Where's the deck at even? At like here's the deck. Like we don't know how this boat's connected to itself. So again, like they needed to get out to like this side, which I was saying, and then like leave this way off of the boat. But of course, they're all just sitting in their rooms, not doing anything. I think here there was places to rest. So this area here of the boat has people in it. And I think inside here too, right? And maybe even here, there is rooms where people are staying. It's just this here is like the problem, I think. Like this section here, because they're deep inside the boat. So getting out of that, I'm assuming most of the people who died were like in here. Like some people probably could have got out here. They might even be able to see the water where they're at. Of course, they weren't strong enough to break a window earlier, right? But if they could have, they maybe could have gotten out here. These, I don't know, maybe. We don't know if people are even living here. They just said they could have rooms here, but I don't know if they had anybody there this time around. Oops. Is this a serious situation? The ferry is tilted and currently being flooded. It hasn't sunk yet. Can we get a video of the accident screen or scene yet? No, not yet. I see. Please contact us when you get one. Yes, sir. I'm afraid it may not be leaked outside. Because the boat is completely starting to flip now, and this is like when it's like just no turning back now. They're just gonna all possibly be trapped, and unless it's like decently flooded, and we can get some divers underneath and start cracking windows, because obviously the pressure from underwater makes it difficult to open anything up. So any doors are going to be just held shut from pressure, the water pressure. Windows, I don't know how bad it would be if they were actually able to successfully crack a window with a tool. Like what kind of suction would happen from that, from the water being poured in. So you kind of need the inside to be flooded. Just like when you're dealing with water stuff like this, it is a problem. Because you kind of need the inside to be flooded with water and then break open a window or open a door so that the water levels are already equalized so that you can open a door without the pressure doing, well, first off, the pressure stopping you from opening a door, or two, possibly sucking you in or out, I think. We need to report to the VIP president. Can you send us the video via cell phone? I mean, the thing's basically completely underwater now. We need to report to the VIP president. Okay, wait,
the Blue House
yes,
is basically like, okay, well, we're going to hang up. Just call us back when you get the footage. Oh, this is like the smallest thing the Blue House messes up. So just you wait. I mean, a president was indirectly impeached because of this incident. So
what is indirectly impeached? They got impeached, but they're trying to make it like seem it wasn't because of this incident.
Soon after this, the Coast Guard patrol vessel 123 arrives at the ferry. They throw over a raft and they head to the ferry to start their little rescue. Just anytime I say rescue, don't think of it as a rescue. Think of it in quotations because it's just a bunch of people acting busy. The first people to step into this rescue raft are the captain and crew members.
Yep.
Not all, but a few.
They're like, I'm out.
Yeah, they're like, bye. They have abandoned the ship. But then so does the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard, the vessel, distances itself from the ferry and they try not to enter the ferry, get close to the ferry. They don't try anything. Meanwhile, there's about 3 helicopters that are just circulating, that are just loitering the area, watching.
What's the deal? What's the problem then?
No one's giving them any commands.
So they're all clueless on what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
And the captain is like just staying silent.
Yeah. And then the Blue House is like, well, we can't tell you what to do unless we get a clear HD 4K video. And then all these other authorities, like the Coast Guard, the Mokpo Coast Guard, the Chindo authorities, they're like, well, we don't know what to do. Have you tried calling the Blue House?
It's weird that they need so much like parenting from the Blue House in this situation. Like, if a boat capsized over here, right? Who cares about the White House? Like, the people, I guess the Coast Guard, right? Coast Guard, whoever's supposed to be doing their job would go out and do it. I don't think they need the White House to tell them what to do. Like, they don't need that. They just go out there and save people, right? It's just so weird that the Blue House has so much sway over what is being done here, rather than professionals who should know what to do by themselves. Like, you already know what to do, just go do it.
Wow.
So everyone's just waiting around. And what's crazy is that there was a US Navy vessel that was nearby that rushed to the scene and they're like, hey, we can help. And the US Navy is so equipped. This vessel had 100 Marines on there.
1,000.
100 Marines. South Korea was like, it's fine. We're waiting on a video.
The government shut them down?
Yeah, the government was like, it's fine. We're handling it.
Oh my God.
I'm going on a little side note, but another rant. The US vessel, the Navy vessel, actually had helicopters on the vessel and they had launch pads. So basically, they didn't have to go back to land to bring survivors. They could just go back and forth to their vessel that's parked very close to the sinking ferry so they could save an insane number of survivors. 1 or 2 helicopters could just do nonstop back and forth in such short time. We're going to dive into the US Navy later because there's a lot of stuff there. Now, anyways, these are not leisure helicopters either. The helicopters that are circulating the ferry are Coast Guard helicopters and they make no additional effort. So they saved 6 people initially. That's it. They make no...
Yeah, they just got 6 and then bailed. Again, since we're talking about the Navy boat, I'm assuming they're like actual, like not just small helicopters too. They're probably pretty big ones. So they could probably get a chunk of people. Not enough to quickly save 500 people, but like way more than 6 per helicopter, I would assume.
Additional efforts to rescue anyone. They later claimed that they had no idea that there were passengers inside. They thought the rescue was over and they were just surveilling the sinking of the ferry. To sum it up, the rescue teams were just rescuing anyone that comes to the deck where you can visibly see them, but every single passenger was told to stay in their cabins.
Oh my God, I cannot even imagine what that captain was going through at that moment.
But we can't even imagine it because I don't think any of us have such little empathy for human life.
Yeah, like when he got out, does he think that all the kids are going to come onto the deck eventually? Or
does he
he's
think
like
the Coast Guard's going to break in?
Yeah, is he knowingly making a decision? It's like, whatever, I just got to save myself. Let them die.
Okay, my speculation is probably the last one because I imagine if rescue efforts were made, he would be the last one rescued because that's kind of how it is in maritime communities. But maybe he thought there is a bigger chance he might die. Because I don't know what he was thinking, genuinely. I can't even...
It's just like standard captain behavior, right? Because again, like, it's supposed to be captain goes down with the ship, even though it's kind of messed up. Like, to say that that's like the whole, again, storytelling thing. But it seems in real life, just like the Casa Concordia story, same thing. The captain just like bailed instantly, and then I think he do the exact same thing. He got off pretending to be a passenger, and then didn't let anybody know he was a captain. Am I just like making that up, or is this exact same behavior? They got off the ship early, pretending to be just a regular Joe Schmo, and just let everybody on the boat die. It's just, why does it seem like this is not just a one-time thing, and it's a common occurrence for captains to do this? Just like, nope. Did the Titanic guy, the Titanic captain went down with the ship, right? I mean, he goofed, didn't they? Like, a lot of them goof, but did he at least go down with the ship? I don't remember.
I can't even guess. No one is saving anyone unless they're visibly out on the deck, like waving their arms around in these bright red life jackets. Like I said, the problem is nobody was told to come out onto the deck. The helicopters again claimed that they had no reason to believe that there were passengers inside. One helicopter Coast Guard officer, even during an interview, complains, rescue's hard. Because you tell a person that you're rescuing to watch their step, and they don't watch their step, even if you tell them to.
They'll listen to whatever you ask them. Even when you tell them to watch the steps, they don't. Like, what? You didn't rescue anybody, so what the heck are you even talking about? Sure, I get what you're saying, but still, like, what are you even talking about?
안 그리고 하물며 어떤 올라갈 때 조심하라고 잣을 쳐라니까.
아니 그러니까 그거는 아닌데 그
I understand your point and what they were going through, but as a member of a rescue team,
사람들 상황은 아는데 지금 구조를 하시는 입장에서는 확인해야 되는
I assume that you have a duty to check.
제가 물어본 것 같아. 근데
I believe I asked, but there was no answer.
And Newstep is like, that's not the point here. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the fact that you circled around this sinking ferry and made no attempts to save anyone. They're like, we didn't know there was anyone to save. It's like, why would you even bring that up? It's so bizarre. Nobody asked.
Yeah, it was just to deflect.
Now, the annoying part is the helicopters that are circulating were talking separately with the Blue House. The giant vessel from the Coast Guard was speaking separately with the Blue House as well as the Coast Guard. There was no coordination. It seemed like everything was all hell breaks loose. Nobody knows what they're doing. Blue House is still asking for videos, and the only people that do something to save human lives. Do you see all these little boats? Those are civilian boats and fishermen.
Yeah, that makes sense. Again, I don't know what it is about South Korea. The government and officials don't give a flying crud about anybody. But like just your random Joe Schmo or whatnot, they are like on it. And when people they don't know die, they are devastated.
No way.
They are the ones that took action. They are risking their lives, pulling up straight next to this capsizing, ginormous ferry. And it's very dangerous to get that close to a boat that's capsizing,
Yeah, it will pull you in.
especially with boats like this. And they're pulling people out of the water. One of the fishermen, Hyun, in the blue boat, he said he saw the boat listing to one side from afar, and he realized that it wasn't balancing itself back out. So he rushes over, he starts rescuing passengers that were jumping into the cold water, and he said it was hell. It was agonizing. There were a lot of people, not enough boats. The people in the water are yelling for help. The ferry was sinking fast. He said he had no idea of how many people he saved, but he was told he saved about 25 people. He said, but I don't know for sure. The people that were trapped inside the ferry couldn't come out. They were just trapped inside the ferry. If everyone was saved, maybe I would feel proud of myself. But there's grieving parents out there, so how can I feel proud? Even though he's one of the civilians saving passengers while the Coast Guard is doing nothing, he lives with guilt for not saving everyone. What's frustrating is when the ferry starts to list, if the captain had ordered everyone to put on a life jacket and get to the dock where they're visible, the likelihood of every single person surviving was incredibly high. The amount of vessels nearby, not just civilian boats and fishermen, but the Coast Guard ships, the US Navy vessels, I mean, the resources of that US Navy vessels, like I said, multiple helicopters, landing decks of the helicopters, over 1,000 Marines ready to assist in air, sea rescue.
1,000?
1,000. Sorry, did I say 100?
You say 100.
1,000. 1,000 Marines. That's how big the US Navy vessel was.
Wow.
1,000 Marines. And I know I'm American, so it might not mean anything because it's just patriotism. But if I'm in the water somewhere, I want these Marines to save me. And America and Korea are on really good terms, so I don't know why they declined for help. But a lot of people think it's President Park was known to have a big ego and was very, very self-conscious about international relations, but not in the way that you want your president to be. Not in the way of like, oh, of course we want good international relations, but wanted to look good is all she cared about.
Oh, she? So, again, like I said, they're just saving face. They don't want to look weak. They don't want to let anyone else outside give them any help. Even if they were just hanging in, they're supposed to have good relations with the U.S. in this situation. Again, they don't want to have anybody give them any help. They can do it themselves. Though, of course, this only created a worse situation for yourself, and now we have to live with that tragedy forever, right? So, way to go. Way to
So
save
the U.S.
face.
Navy vessel just loitered around waiting to be used at any given moment. They're like waiting to be called in because, you know, it'd be a shit show if they just went in there. But the call never came. The rescue could have been so successful. And these Marines are specifically trained in air-sea rescue.
No way.
The Korean Coast Guard, they were more like patrol people. They patrol to make sure that there's no illegal fishermen from other countries fishing in their seas.
Illegal fishermen from other countries.
Most of the Korean Coast Guard was on a job to look for illegal Chinese fishermen, literally. That was their job. So the US Navy, why were they not used? I still don't understand. So one thing that you notice that's a problem is that all of these officials who get paid by the state, by government tax dollars that the civilians pay, they don't want to be the ones to make the call. They don't want to be the ones held accountable. So everyone keeps pushing responsibility onto each other. And that's what resulted in so many of these different vessels and helicopters just waiting around while people are dying. But there are heroes in this story. So do you remember?
Well, we already got some like the fishermen civilians, right? And again, like I was saying, they don't want to be indebted to the U.S. Like that's like just an easy way to say it. They don't want to be indebted to the U.S. no matter what happens, which is just stupid. Like if you could save people, save people.
The first emergency call made was by a student, Chue.
Mm-hmm.
He stayed on the phone with emergency services, trying to give them the exact location of the sinking ferry.
So then they should know there's kids in there.
Yeah, exactly.
What
He
the
tried to give the exact location because, again, I don't know why this was such a problem. I don't know how they didn't know where the exact location was. But remember the 2.5 hour delay? I guess they were thinking the boat was closer to Jeju because they didn't factor in the delay, but they were closer to Jindo Island, so it was a mess.
All right, because they started at 9, so I guess they were thought. I mean, if they didn't factor in the delay, then they should have known they would have been at Jeju, which means they should have probably just crashed on the coast if they were at Jeju, and thus would have been fine. So I don't know. Of course, all the government stuff
And
is just
Chue, he was
trashy.
sad that he wasn't able to call his parents.
I don't know if that is in real time. Like testimony of this kid, or if that is he lived. If that's just something he told the operator, whoever he was talking to.
The information that he was able to provide to authorities was very crucial. Chue's body was found, and his
Okay, he didn't
parents
make it.
were really confused because, a lot of these other kids, they all had cell service and they called their parents, but they never got a call from their son. They were later told that he was the one on the phone with emergency services. And they said, it made sense. We're just so proud of him, and we think that God brought our boy into this world for this purpose, to try and save people. While Captain Lee and a few of the other crew members escaped, there were some crew members who refused. Park Ji-an, Chung Hyun-sun, and Kim Gi-won, they stayed aboard the ferry to help the students. All three went down with the sinking boat. Park Ji-young was the youngest part-time worker of the crew. She was just 22 years old. I mean, she's barely older than these high school students. 2 years prior to this, her father passed away and her mom didn't have enough money. So she dropped out of school and started working. She was one of the first to have an easy escape. She was like near the dock. She could hear the kids though, and the PA system was still telling them to stay put. So she runs to the ship, took off her life jacket, gave it to a younger kid nearby who didn't have one. And like I said, she's basically a kid herself. She starts stumbling, running as fast as she can through the halls and yells for the students to evacuate. She's handing out life jackets. She tells them to jump ship. She guides some 50 students to the civilian fishing boats who lift them out of the water and into the boat. One survivor remembers grabbing Park's arm and saying, okay, just come jump in the water with us. Like, you don't have a life jacket, but I'm going to hold your arm. And she said, after saving you guys, after saving the rest of them, I'll get out. Crew goes out last. And then she just disappeared again to save more kids. She kept going, and the last time someone saw her alive was going deeper into the water where it was already chest level to see if there were more students. Her body was later found floating face down. Still no life jacket. Even in her last moments, she never wore one because there wasn't enough life jackets for both passenger and crew. 2 other crewmates, Chung Hyun-sun and Kim Gi-won, they refused to escape with cowards. They wanted to save the kids. Chung and Kim also could have been very easily rescued, but they decided to go back down and help the children. They were both 28, and they were actually getting married later that year to each other. Their bodies were later found as well, and they had spent their last moments saving children. These 3 part-time crew members would formally be recognized by the government as national martyrs, because it was just such a stark contrast to the captain and the crew. I mean, most of the crew who were among the first to abandon the ship.
Is that like a title that's given out? National Martyrs? Is that just a South Korean thing? Or is that just something that happens to, like in every country? They just have a, like similar to like a Purple Heart, right? Is there just, actually, is a Purple Heart just the same thing as a National Martyr? I don't think it's the exact same thing. I don't know if we have like a martyr title to give someone as like it's basically just a hero title, right?
Young Daeong was another crew member that went down with the ship. He's 45 years old, and he called his wife, and he told her, "This is where you need to find the savings for our teenage son's college tuition, okay?" And when she tried to plead with him, he told her, "I love you, but I can't talk. I have to go save the kids." His body was found a month later, and his face was unrecognizable, and there was a walkie-talkie found near him. Soo-young was a young teacher, and it was her second year teaching at Tanwon High. She was
I mean, yeah, she looks like a child herself.
very young, and it was her first year on the school field trip. When the boat started sinking, she texted her mom, "Mom, the ship is sinking." Her mom called her and was like, "Hurry, put on a life vest." And she responded calmly, "Mom, the students are all wearing life vests," indicating there weren't any more for her. She texted her boyfriend after this and said, "I'm sorry. There's no more life vests. Thank you, and I love you." And he calls her and she says, "I can't, I'm sorry. My battery is low and some of the students still need to call their parents." Her last words were, "I love you, thank you," to her boyfriend. Another teacher was Ko Chang-suk, and Mr. Ko was a PE teacher. Oh my god, this picture. This is the PE teacher. He was a PE teacher for the last decade. And at his old job, before he got to Tanwon, there was actually a fire in the school. And he was given like an award by the school because he ran in head on into the fire to save students from the burning fire. He also went down. And I mean, there was no question what he was going to do. He was going to save the kids. He left behind a loving wife and 2 sons. His body actually wouldn't be recovered until 3 years after the incident.
I was like 3 years later. Like, how do they even know it was him anymore? I'm guessing maybe dental. It's always dental, right?
There was a memorial service held for him, and a student came and said, "Mr. Ko could have escaped early, but he stayed to take care of us until the very end." So these are all heroes, and it's not really a heartwarming story, though, where you feel good in the end. You're like, yes, the hero won, because nobody wins. There's like way too many villains in this one to even get close to the number of heroes.
Well, yeah, everybody's like just goofing, and most of the people died, so it was just bad all around.
There's another story, though, on the boat where a 6-year-old girl. This reminds me of Itaewon, but a 6-year-old
Oh, we're talking about Itaewon now. So this must have gone out after Itaewon.
girl was there with her parents and her 7-year-old brother. So they were part of the passengers that were going on vacation to Jeju. She was passed one by one from adults to the water to one of the fishermen's boats. All the way. Her parents and her 7-year-old brother would all perish. Everyone worked to get this girl to safety, and she would be the youngest survivor of Sewol. Now, civilians were the only hope for these children because of the government, the authorities, they were doing nothing. Like I said, most of these boats saving these people are civilians, fishermen, commercial fishermen, just regular citizens, not government workers. But many civilian divers who saw the news said they were gearing up to volunteer as rescuers. These are like professional divers who have been doing this that want to volunteer to save these kids, right? They know the dangers. They're gearing up, they're coming from Seoul and all these places. But then the news starts flooding that everyone has been rescued. So they're like, oh, okay, I guess I don't have to go? Like, why would I go into the water if everyone's already rescued out of the water?
It's just that misinformation costs even more lives, right?
And it wasn't until hours later there were these like rumors and these kind of like fishy things that these volunteer divers were even picking up on. Because, you know, these are people who know how to dive, and the way that the news was reporting these rescues just didn't sound right. So they're like, why don't I just head to Chindo Island and see what's going on? Maybe they need me, maybe they don't. I mean, at least I can try, right? So many precious hours were lost because these civilian divers didn't go at the time because, I mean, nobody's blaming the civilian divers here. They're risking their lives to save others. But the fact that they thought everyone had been rescued, it's just so frustrating how grossly mishandled this was. Many of the civilian divers, they volunteered and they started arriving at around 4 p.m. that day.
Okay, 4 p.m. This is incredibly late because, again, the boat started capsizing around 9 a.m. So we are very, very late after that. That's like nearly 7 hours later, right?
The boat started sinking at like 9 a.m. They got there around 4 p.m. and they were told to report to a command ship of the Coast Guard that was stationed near the ferry. So these volunteer divers, they don't come to play. They're suiting up, gearing up, mentally preparing themselves, but the Coast Guard is not letting them do their jobs. One of the civilian divers said it was bizarre. I was being walked around this Coast Guard vessel. Like, come here, let me introduce you to my colleague. Oh, and this is my captain here. Oh, and then this is my senior colleague. What did you say your name was? How long have you guys been diving? Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Oh, you know, my colleague is from that area. Do you want to come to the cafeteria? They prepared ramen. This is not an exaggeration. The rescue diver said they prepared ramen and he was so disgusted. He just didn't understand. He saw some of the top dogs aboard this command ship. 2-star Navy officers, chief of the Coast Guard, chief of the West Coast Coast Guard, the chief of the Mokpo Coast Guard, fancy suits and shoes, tapping away on their laptops.
Wait, I'm confused. Like they're not sending people down the water?
No. That's what they're doing, just tip-tapping on their laptops. The ramen was even brought into the conference room for these chiefs to eat, and the diver that was interviewed said he wished he could have recorded the video of these chiefs just digging into these noodles like pigs. They said they ate the ramen noodles, had a meeting for 5 minutes, and then the chiefs were like, well, we got other places to be, so bye. He was sickened to see that the chief of the West Coast Guard went to a press conference like immediately after this, the whole ramen debacle, in his uniform with all of his badges, and stated, as of today, 164 vessels, 24 aircraft, 178 special rescue workers are doing our best in conducting a search of the area. The civilian diver had no words. Just no words. But he's not alone. Many of the civilian divers came forward anonymously later to say that the Coast Guard would not let them do their job. And it was...
I don't know what is going on with the government here. Since we had this happen so, like, badly, but then we fast forward to Itaewon, which is like 6 years later, I think, and still, the government is still so incompetent, even after, like, impeaching and kicking everybody out to the curb. It's like, how does this keep happening? When was the Death Mall incident? We never got a time period for that. Depending on how well did they handle that? I mean, outside of the businessman letting that building crumble, again, that's just someone high up letting bad things happen. But I feel like, wasn't the rescue for that pretty okay? Question mark. And if it was, what happened between that point and, you know, now with the ferry, and then even further with Itaewon?
It wasn't even a job, they're volunteering.
Like, what happened? Why is it just incompetence to the highest degree every time? I mean, something like, it has to be incompetence to the highest degree every time for these things to keep happening, right? But still.
Just wouldn't let them do it. It was just nonstop, like, oh, come meet my colleague. Oh, are you sure that's up to code? Your diving suit? Are you sure? What is it made out of? They're like, what is your deal? Let us go save some children right now. So the parents, now remember how the parents wanted to rent a boat to go out to sea for themselves and to save their children? Well, the very first day, a group of the parents do rent a boat and they go to report back to the others what's going on. And one dad screamed, "They told us civilians can enter the water, but the Coast Guard can't." What is this?
What?
They're basically saying, oh, you want to dive in and get your kid? dive in and get your kid, but we can't. He's screaming, what is this? What is this? The civilian diver, one of the civilian rescue divers, had volunteered to go on the boat with them. And he was explaining, like, with these conditions, the Coast Guard should be going in. The conditions are calm. This is like optimal rescue conditions right now. Earlier that day, civilian fishermen were trying to break windows to save people, but the Coast Guard said, no, we can't do that. So they can't break windows, they can't go into the ferry before it sinks to save people, and now that part of the ferry is sunken, they can't try to rescue people by diving, they can't do anything. What are you doing? Why do you exist?
I feel like you should just like ignore them. Be like, I don't care if I get in trouble for this, I'm going. At this point, like, they're just not going to do anything. I feel like a lot of people probably would do that. I mean, those civilians probably were breaking the rules, right, by rescuing kids, but just screw them. Just like, if you can break the windows, break the windows. You can get in, get in.
Why do you have a job? A reporter asked a parent who saw the ferry sinking and said, and what are the Coast Guard doing right now? And he says, as of right now, there is nothing they're doing. April 16th was the morning the boat started listing, okay? Now, at 10:52, reporters went out to the scene and still nothing was being done. 10:52 p.m., a whole day had passed.
Like 14 hours later?
Yeah, and nothing was being done. Let me show you.
I mean, it's just the top thing hanging above. I don't know how deep it is here, if the boat's actually touching the bottom of the ocean here, or if this just has enough buoyancy to stay up like that.
How calm the waters were.
The water was so still. There's no waves.
14 hours later,
Hold up,
the boat-
roll me back.
Were.
The water was so still. There's no waves that didn't even seem to move at all. They still didn't do nothing.
You're saying 14 hours later, the boat's still sinking?
Yeah, it's still actively sinking. And this is like, you need to dive in. So what happens on these boats is time is of the essence. Of course, the golden hour was the first hour and a half that the boat even started listing, way in the morning at like 9 a.m. when the captain was like, tell everyone to stay in their cabins. That was golden hour. Almost everyone could have been saved had they just gotten to the deck. They would have been saved, okay?
Yeah, like I said, if they just got to the deck, and then as soon as it fully capsized to the left, they all would have just been in the water. And I assume it would take some time. As soon as it hits the water, it's like listing would slow down, because now it has to go against the water itself rather than just going through air. Now it has to go through the water, and they would have time to just slide into the water and swim away as far as they could, and then they could be saved at that point.
Now, the next golden time was considered the next 72 hours, because there's actually a phenomenon that's quite common where there's air pockets inside of boats. So these divers need to go in and get these people inside of these air pockets. So if you're in a room...
I don't remember what the story was, but I remember there's a story of a boat sinking, question mark, and I forgot. I don't know how this plays out exactly, but like some divers were just in there. I don't think they were even in there to save anybody. Maybe they were, but divers got into a boat and they found like an air pocket in the boat at some point, and they just find a dude in there, and he'd been trapped in there for like days, I think, and they just found him and they were able to rescue him. So yeah, I mean, that is something that happens, because like, it's not going to completely fill up with air. It depends on like the levels of the water, right? And if it levels out to allow air. Of course, the air is only going to last you for so long, though.
Where no water has seeped in, which is sometimes possible, you're alive. You have about 72 hours. So these divers need to get down there and hope that there's a lot of air pockets.
Yeah. Even if there's one person, they
That's
should be
everything.
doing everything. Yes.
This is how still and calm the water was. Do you see how it's dark? Where are all the Coast Guard vessels? Where are the divers? This should be lit up like a command center. This should be lit up like the 4th of July. This is what it looked like. It's the most peaceful water. There's no waves, really.
Oh, wait, hold on. Roll me back. The families witnessed Sewol. I cannot like imitate how she says it. Ferry for the first time.
It's the most peaceful water. There's no waves, really.
It did not.
It's the most peaceful water.
They did not give up hope that their loved ones may still be alive.
There's no waves, really. Nothing. No one's out there. During press conferences, the Coast Guard made it seem like it is pure chaos out there with our rescue efforts. We've got how many ships, how many people? Oh, you guys, South Korea, just you wait. Coast Guard's got you.
I mean, just saving face, right? It's just a story of just saving face.
This is what it looked like.
How were the water currents? Was it fast? It was calm. Calm as a lake. We got flares
They said
out
the water
there.
was as calm as a lake. There wasn't a single wave, but nothing was being done. You could still see the ferry. It hadn't fully capsized yet. There were no rescue efforts. I mean, imagine the anger of the parents seeing that, and they can't do anything for their children. They were yelling at their boat to the Coast Guard, do something. They screamed, they're alive, you have to rescue them. The Coast Guard never responded. All they did was circle the Sewol ferry over and over.
What's their excuses now?
They said that they had to survey the area. That's the thing that they constantly say in this whole tragedy is they needed to survey the conditions. They needed to make sure they could go in.
I don't get it. Who's in charge? I'm so confused about this.
Every Coast Guard official is saying a different thing, but all of them have the same message of we're doing everything we can, but nobody's doing anything.
Okay, so it sounds like there's someone from the top not letting them do something, right?
So it's speculated. It's not that they were not letting them do something, but they had no idea how to do anything.
Yeah, is that what's going on here? Nobody actually knows how to deal with a event like this? Have they ever had a capsize of a lot of people before? And they somehow have nobody trained to deal with a situation like this? Which is kind of crazy. I mean, they better have one now. I mean, 11 years later, you would hope that they have a way to deal with saving people from a sinking ship, but it just seemed like nobody knows what to do. Everyone's just running around with their head cut off, right? The phrase is a chicken with its head cut off, which seems like what is happening here. Nobody knows what to do. Nobody wants to do anything. Just oh well, it'll fix itself, right? It'll just fix itself eventually.
The Korean Coast Guard was not trained for search and rescue.
Because they said they were there for trying to stop Chinese fishermen from fishing in their waters, which, okay, I guess that's bad, question mark. I guess because you don't want a bunch of foreign countries scooping up your fish and then taking it back and selling it, and because it's all money, right? Because that's less fish that you have to sell, and it's taking away from your how much you can gouge for that specific fish that you could only find in your area. But still, you could at least train them to actually rescue people and not just get rid of threats, question mark.
They can dive in and pull people.
So they're we're probably going to die. So they were allegedly just telling the Blue House, whatever you're suggesting we do, we're not capable. We can't do it.
Then where's the capable people?
But they didn't say we're not capable. They're conditions won't let us. The condition is too bad. The condition is too bad. So then I don't think South Korea would then go to the US and be like, hey, the condition is too bad. Y'all get in there. A lot of these politicians, it was like a balancing game. They want help, but their reputations depend on them not asking for help, whether it's from different departments in Korea, whether it's civilian rescue divers.
They can't be indebted to anybody.
Whether it's the US Navy, they did not want to ask for help, but they themselves did not have the competency to do the search and rescue, but they couldn't admit to that. So they're all just shifting blame around. So
And assuming the Navy really can't even come in, because they probably don't even know there's an issue, because the media is saying that everything's fine, right? So if they have nothing to go off of, and they're just being told everything's fine, and the media is saying everything's fine, they're like, okay, I guess everything's fine then. But even if they wanted to go against them, I don't know how that would turn out. If the Navy just showed up, I was like, okay, we're going to save these people. The Korea, to try to save face, might turn it into how would you even an international incident that they need to pay for? Now it's the Navy's fault. If the Navy didn't show up, then maybe they would have saved more people. So now it's the Navy's fault that everyone died. So I mean, they could have just blamed it on the U.S. if they wanted to. So that was a strategy they could have done. Just let the U.S. come, and then anybody who dies, they can blame it on the U.S. if we want to be evil here for a second, that would have been the best case scenario, because then you save as many people as possible, which makes you look good. But then the people who do die, you can blame it on the U.S.
For President Park, I imagine it's embarrassing that you don't have a team of qualified people to do search and rescue.
Wow.
In your whole nation. Like, imagine the U.S. Navy f***ed up this bad. You don't think America would be like, I guess we're not a cool, powerful nation. I guess we're ass. It's just a lot of like reputation control, and none of these Coast Guard officials wanted to be the one to do it, because there's like 5 different Coast Guards. That's another huge problem. It's not like, oh, just U.S. Navy.
Okay.
Because then you have a top dog that's like, okay, well, if the president doesn't want to do anything, I gotta at least do something, right? But there's like the Mokpo Coast Guard, the Coast Guard of the West Coast, the regular Coast Guard.
Yeah, I noticed earlier that she mentioned there's like 50 different Coast Guards, and it's like, isn't it just the Coast Guard? Not just... Why is there so many different labeled Coast Guards?
There's so many people involved that they're like, well, let's just see if they do something. Because we don't want to do... Because what if we do it and we f*** it up? That it's on us. So we just wait. Like, they want to do something, they can do it.
So they're all bystanders.
They're all bystanders. They care more about their reputation and their careers. Yeah, the parents are screaming, what are you doing? You need to do something. Get in the water. And they even screamed, I'm not saying this is easy work, but you need to at least show that you're trying. There are survivors in that ship. What is wrong with you? It's so heartbreaking because a dad on the boat tries to jump into the water and everyone tries to stop him.
Did he actually get inside the water?
Into the water and everyone tries to stop him.
I'm seeing what... it's too fast. There was text down there, but that's probably from some other conversation. So he probably jumped in, and they grabbed him and pulled him in, and now he's in the boat crying.
And what's crazy about this is that the Coast Guard official documents report that they were doing underwater rescue efforts at that exact time that the parents are out there watching them. There was no such thing. So how do your report say that you were doing intensive underwater rescue? They stated that they did rescue all night long, but all they did was get on a little boat and circle the capsizing ferry. At one point, one of the Coast Guards drives up close to it and just like knocks on the ferry. It's like, a parent who saw that said, I can't believe I was inches away from my child and all I could do is helplessly watch him die. So the parents, the reporters on this boat that saw this, they saw the discrepancy of no actual rescue efforts being done. They recorded videos of it, sent it to all the major news network. So the reporters on there were a lot of trusted reporters by parents. Did you know at first the parents were allowed a boat out there by the Coast Guard and it was filled to the brim with mainstream media news reporters? There wasn't enough room for parents.
Okay, so they just gave him a boat, but then just filled it up with the media.
The parents forcibly like kicked them out. But just the disgust that these media reporters were like, well, I know that we said 2 seconds ago that we already rescued everyone, but like, can I go take some more pictures out there? So their trusted reporters went out with them and they sent all of these videos to mainstream major news networks. Not a single one of them aired it. Not a single one of them talked about the discrepancy because they were under President Park. President Park was known as a very, very fascinating woman who loved to bully reporters and mainstream news medias. That was her thing.
So they're like, this makes her look bad, so we can't post it?
Yeah, because then we're going to be on her list. That was the very first day and night of rescue efforts. That's all they did. Nothing.
I mean, I'm pretty sure in hindsight, they probably are thinking they should have posted the video since she got impeached anyways, right? So who's there to be scared of when she got thrown to the wolves either way? They should have just kept their integrity. But again, journalists, mainstream media hasn't had any integrity for like decades now, right? So you can't really trust them.
I mean, they did nothing. The next day, April 17th, it doesn't get any better. There is still no control tower, no organized operation. Nobody has one person that they're really reporting to. Even the president, President Park, she was MIA for 7 hours, the first 7 hours of the incident. She was nowhere to be found. We're going to get to it later. So the president and the prime minister, they visit the area in Chindo Island where the parents are gathered. Apparently, a boatload of politicians, lawmakers, and parents had gone out on a boat to go visit the Coast Guard. And parents were disgusted. I wish I was eloquent. I wish I could describe to you what kind of emotion that must have been. But the parents said they stood there and they watched the Coast Guard point at maps. They watched the politicians in suits go, It was like watching people pretend to do a job. It was like,
Yeah, that's what it feels like just hearing it. I forget how they're just miming the actions of what they should be doing to make it seem like they're doing something, but they're not actually doing anything at all.
watching a skit. They felt like they were losing their minds. The Coast Guard is saying things that they know are not true, like, oh, we worked so hard last night to do underwater rescue. They're pointing at random maps, pointing at pictures of inside the Sewol ferry. Parents get out onto the dock of the Coast Guard vessel and they see divers go under the surface of the water, kind of like flap around for 5 minutes and then come back out. They said it's like a sick joke. Like everyone's pretending. Like I imagine I would want to shake someone by their shoulders. Like, hello? Can you wake up? Like there's people dying. The parents decide that they can't trust anyone. So they
Yeah, of course, just like kick them all to the curb and do it yourself.
start their own task forces and have coordinated group chats to relay information in a clean and orderly fashion. They were more informed than the Coast Guard. One parent actually confronts a government official who tells him, "We were doing rescues all night." The parent gets in his face and says, "Stop lying and manipulating the news and tell me, look me in the eye and tell me you were doing rescues all night." The government official seems shocked and tries to grab his phone and call someone like, we were. The government officials actually seem shocked that the parents have such up-to-date information. I guess they didn't think that the parents would be that coordinated. Like,
I mean, I'm pretty sure you can just look with your own eyes and see, so that's kind of dumb of the higher-ups. It's just like incompetence after incompetence after incompetence.
parents would call them out for every single discrepancy and they were shocked. And every single one of them has the same reaction. They're saying something so confidently. We rescued this many people. Oh, this is what we've been doing. The parent confronts them with their lies. They all grab their phone and call someone.
Yeah, because you just gotta try to make up a new story, or you just need to make it look like you're busy and you gotta go do something else. You just gotta get out of the situation. They're just trying to weasel their way out.
One of the parents literally goes, "Why are you lying to me? We have our parents on a boat out there. I just talked to them. That is a blatant lie." The government official goes, and they were at the Coast Guard boat? Oh, and he grabs his phone. "Oh, yeah, 여보세요."
Despicable.
Yeah, despicable. I mean,
At last, something.
I mean,
At last, the mother broke down and burst out crying.
now, at that moment, the prime minister shows up at the Chindo gym, and he's second in charge to the president in this country. I guess nobody informed him that the parents are not in the dark on all of this, that the
Okay, roll me back. Who is this?
prime minister shows up at the
The
Chindo gym,
okay, the prime minister.
and he's second in charge to the president.
The prime minister is second in charge of the president in South Korea. We did that information before because I didn't know how their system worked in Itaewon scenario. Because I assumed they had a prime minister, but she never brought up the prime minister in the Itaewon thing. Or did the president even show up in the death mall? I don't think so. I don't think it was needed there. But maybe they made a statement. I don't know. And I assume they would have a prime minister over a president, and apparently they have both of them, and the prime minister is below the president, weirdly enough.
In this country. I guess nobody informed him that the parents are not in the dark on all of this, that the parents are not going to be like, "Thank you, Prime Minister, for your efforts all night long." Because I think he walked in expecting some things and questions, but instead he was chased down and had water bottles thrown at his face. Open water bottles, which I think is symbolic in hindsight. In the end, police
Family members, patience with the prime minister completely wore out.
protected him and escorted him out. President Park Geun-hye also
Some were throwing water bottles at the prime minister, which got cut short by the guards.
In the end, police protected him and escorted him out. President Park Geun-hye also visited with this whole entourage of security and politicians. Parents were a bit more receptive to her because at the end of the day, this is the most powerful person in the nation. If anyone is going to help them, it's going to be her. So even if they hate her, they can't show it. But they were let down once more. She stated, "I just went to the rescue team, and I want to assure you guys all the government mobilized all resources and personnel to retrieve the victims." The Coast Guard chief also goes up next to the president and claims that he has sent 500 divers to the rescue. The parents know that this is a blatant lie. They are enraged. They start screaming at the chief of the Coast Guard. And side note, there's video of this, and President Park doesn't even seem surprised that the parents are screaming at his lies, almost as if she knows very well herself that those are blatant lies. Because I imagine if I'm the president and my chief just lied to me, I'd be like, why are they booing that? But she looks like she was expecting it.
Okay. The chief of the Coast Guard. I guess this guy. This dude here, I'm guessing, is the chief because he has a microphone. I'm telling you, we have sent 500 divers to the rescue operation despite difficult circumstances. And I'm guessing this is the president.
Family said they were straight up stunned at the blatant lies that were being shoved in their face. It was unbelievable. Also, Park Geun-hye starts using this as an opportunity to say that nobody cares about. Like, their kids are still out there. They want rescue teams. And she states, so what we're going to do with this is an opportunity to conduct a thorough investigation on the cause of the accident and severely punish those involved.
Okay, just like deflect. We've deflected away from something being like saving the children. It's like, okay, we're just gonna assume it's over. Now we deflect to trying to blame somebody other than me. Now we gotta run that immediately. We have to start blaming someone immediately so it doesn't look like it's my fault.
That's not what anyone is talking about right now. That was the whole second day of the rescue. The second most valuable day. That's how it went. The third day, April 18th, a lot of developments took place and none of them were good. The Sewol ferry was now fully submerged. Parents went out and they couldn't see the boat anymore and they cried. Government also let a private company step in for rescue efforts. A company called Undyne started.
Okay, private company. It's called Undyne. That is a aquatic-based name. So you would hope they would be able to do something when you're naming yourself Undyne. I would hope that you can do something.
To lead the rescue attempts, but it was more of a recovery attempt. It was like a half rescue, half recovery. So there's still a chance that you can live 72 hours in an air pocket, but it was guesstimated that most of the bodies being retrieved would be dead, so it'd be a recovery attempt. Now, they sucked. Undyne sucked.
Okay. Revoke your name. You can't be called Undyne if you are unable to do aquatic stuff. Like here, if you don't know why I was referring to them being aquatic-based, because Undying is, if you were not aware, a water nymph or spirit from folklore that has to do with water, etc., etc. And just for anybody who didn't know that, that's why I was saying they better be good at their job if they're going to go and take the mythical creature, the Undine, or however you want to say it, because I don't know if I would say Undyne. I think usually a lot of people pronounce it undying, like almost like you're saying undying, but I don't know. Undine? I kind of would like to say as well, but I don't know. Say however you want, just still. You're naming yourself an aquatic creature, like a water elemental basically, and you're unable to do any sort of water-based stuff. Revoked, all fired, arrested.
So bad. I think that this was just like a government contract bid that won. I don't even understand how they were in control of this. Now, the idea from the get-go was the Coast Guard or someone, since the Coast Guard is useless, would inject air into this Sewol ferry. This is going to...
I don't know if that's a good idea.
help with multiple things. It would hopefully improve its buoyancy, and this is very
Sure.
important because if the boat is fully submerged in water, it's going to start sinking, and
Yeah.
divers cannot be in there when it's sinking to the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
So they need it to somewhat still be near the surface of the water, makes it easier for rescue or recovery. And if there is human life, injecting air could help those air pockets survive longer. That's what Undyne was here to do. The Coast Guard couldn't do it clearly, so Undyne is here. They should have done this first thing when rescue started, but the Coast Guard didn't have the tools. So on the third day, they're like, we're bringing in a private sector. Okay.
Yeah, again, they should have done the first day when the boat was still above ground. Though again, how does that work? Are you pumping water out and pumping air in at the same time? Because I feel like if you're slamming air against the water, you're going to create pressure, aren't you? The boat can only be filled up with so much. It only has so much volume that it can be filled with. So what's going to happen to the contents on the inside if it's being that's going to have issues with pressure? I mean, I don't know what I'm talking about, right? But I feel like there will be some pressure issues with doing that, unless the water's just being dumped out and out into the ocean or whatever from the air being pumped in, which is okay, fine, sure.
We're bringing in the private sector. Undyne's going to do this. And Undyne comes in with these massive air compressors. They're old. They're industrial use, not compatible with human life. Meaning, if you injected this into a room, you'd probably kill the people in the room.
Okay, so again, like I was saying, that's basically what I was saying. Is this going to kill people if you pump it full of air? And in fact, I was right. It will kill people if you try to do it. Well, these industrial versions anyways.
The air is like auto gas air. And they're super old and outdated. I mean, what? But Undyne Marine shows up with these compressors, with their full chest. They're like, yeah, these are the ones. Are you not even ashamed? Not only do they not have the proper equipment, but they also don't have the experience. Again, the U.S. Navy was nearby and offered their assistance once more. They said, we have new compressors, and we also have qualified professionals that utilize these compressors and have done rescue efforts such as this one. They were denied. South Korea said, thank you, though. But no. This day also marked the first discovery or recovery of bodies. 3 bodies were recovered by civilian divers, but mainstream media said all of it was due to Undyne. Undyne recovered these bodies, and that makes me so mad because these civilian divers gave up a lot to help. They were not part of the Navy or the Coast Guard. They were.
I mean, of course they're going to give it to whatever the government is doing, right? Because the media can't say that it was the civilians or some outside source or whatnot, because that makes the president slash prime minister slash the government look bad. And we already know that if they make the president look bad, they're going to be, excuse the language, on the shit list of the president. And they can't have that, right? So there's also that's taken into effect. Same thing with the Navy. If they let the U.S., intervene, again, it's not just being indebted. You can't hide the fact that the U.S. Navy is helping. Thus, you can't be like, oh, it was because of the president and the president's actions that these people were saved. It's like, no, you can see clearly this U.S. boat and helicopters and Marines helping you, and that paints a bad picture for you being incompetent, ? And it's just again, we can always just say it with me, saving face.
Where moms and dads, corporate employees, professional divers in other industries, they were stay-at-home parents. The only thing that these divers had in common was that they liked to dive, they were good at it, and they wanted to help people. So they left their homes and their families to drive to this southern part of Korea to do the most important dive of their lives. Many of these civilian divers would end up permanently injured, paralyzed, traumatized, depressed, and some would even lose their lives because of this dive. They told each other.
I was wondering if anybody who tried to help actually ended up dying, and I guess clearly some people did end up dying trying to help.
Minimize shock when you're down there. Shock is no good for anyone.
Shock? Are you talking about emotional shock or actual, shock waves?
The divers all made a pact to not look the students in the eye. Because once you do that, you will never be the same, and it'll make it harder for you to go back down underwater.
Because we're talking about emotional shock.
They talked about how it was the hardest thing. The ones that drowned, they would have to recover their bodies, right? So their families could put them to rest. But there was so much debris in the water, because think about this big ship. There's so much things falling apart. Walls were collapsing, and the hallways became narrower than your shoulder width. A lot of them had to squeeze through hallways. Bad weather delayed the use of a diving bell, so they had to use these super flimsy, flexible air hoses. But if they're twisting and turning in there, it could easily snap, break, or it could be folded to a point where they're not getting air anymore.
Yeah, wouldn't be able to go in. And it didn't cross my mind about that. Like, I think that's what we were saying earlier, that if the hallways are getting tighter, not just because of the water, but like say if we have different levels here, right? Like they're actually, from sinking downwards, they're collapsing down on each other. So as they're going down, you know, right, they're getting smaller. Each like hallway is being smaller because it's being crushed, sandwiched as it's I guess maybe the pressure of the water is squishing the boat down. I don't doubt. I keep talking about the pressure. I'll stop talking about the pressure because I don't know what I'm talking about. Like the actual rooms are just getting smaller and smaller because they're being crushed closer and closer together from what's happening.
It could get caught in things. It was very, very dangerous. They had to go down in teams of 3, and they would never forget the things they saw. There were bodies in life jackets floating around in the ship now, and the divers had to reach up, grab the bodies, and hug them so that they wouldn't keep floating up. They would find a window that they could break and get rid of all glass and debris. Then they would carefully push the body through the open window so that they could float to the surface. If a body was found without a life jacket, 2 divers, one diver would have to wrap their arms around this dead body, and the second diver would have to pull them through a rope to the surface. The divers said they found many of the students hugging each other, holding each other, or tied together. They said how hard it must have been for those kids. With the cold water rushing in and the darkness coming over them, I thought to myself, why did I even offer to volunteer with this if I can't even save one life? Most of the students had broken fingers. They tried till their very last moment to break the doors or windows to escape, breaking their fingers in the process. After seeing this, a lot of divers would never be the same. Kim Sang-ul, one of the civilian divers, said he was at home when he watched the news, and his diver buddies called him up and was like, you need to get here now. We need to save some kids. So he drove hours from his house in Sewol to the southern coast. He spent 2 months away from his family, risking his life to squeeze into these small openings, these dangerous conditions, to find bodies.
Again, like I've said it like 1,000 times, just the immediate empathy and heroism of just the average Joes over here is just immediate. Like, we got to go save. And the government doesn't do anything. It's such a harsh contrast. Of course, it's being painted that way. But still, it's just a constant harsh contrast. Like, how can all these people be evil? And how can every normal person just be a saint? It's just crazy.
They worked in 3-hour shifts.
He did it for 2 months?
2 months. 3 hours of rest, 3 hours of diving, 3 hours of rest. But like the other divers, he was having a hard time resting no matter how exhausted he was. The stress of the dives wrecked his body. The anxiety wrecked his body. Finding these water-bloated corpses of children, he said he could never get that image out of his mind, and he had nightmares anytime he closed his eyes. He said, we were touching each of these children with our bare hands as we brought them up. Even now, I can't hold my wife or children. I can't stand skin. In addition to the psychological trauma he has, he suffered a shoulder injury that needed surgery. So while he was diving, a luggage compartment in the Sewol broke open and massive luggage tumbled straight onto his shoulder. He had to get surgery, and he says he drinks every day now. He just drinks because it's his medicine. In the end, his biggest regret isn't even volunteering. His biggest regret was getting there too late. He said, I couldn't even save one person. Many of the civilian volunteers, they all went through so much. So 43-year-old Kim Kwan-ong, he helped bring back 25 bodies. At one point, he lost consciousness during a dive, got swept.
Yeah, I mean, they keep getting really dangerous here because the previous guy, having his shoulder basically broken, right? During that could have cost him his life. Apparently, this guy as well is going to get in trouble. Again, well, he lost consciousness, right? So he could have died.
Swept away in the current, was saved, had to go to the ER for treatment. He stayed in the hospital for 3 days.
I'm going to say that after he got out, he went right back.
Minute he got back out, he was back in the water.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious. Again, the empathy and heroism of the average Joes and Janes is just crazy.
He went into places where the Coast Guard weren't even attempting to go, not even pretending like they were going to go. He went to places the Coast Guard deemed too dangerous, and he brought back children in his arms. He said, "The victims were tangled together in their utter terror, and I prayed and cradled each one of them as I brought them up." The divers did their best while the country did nothing. The country did nothing, especially for the divers. Do you know what the divers got in exchange for their contribution? Nothing. Okay, his only thing that he got, the only reason he did this was for the families of the victims, to give them closure and to do right by the children of the nation. But his body was wrecked. He cannot dive anymore. He has mounting hospital bills. He has paralysis in his left thigh. The government refused to deem the 39 injured civilian divers during the search operations as wounded by righteous causes, which would allow them to get health benefits and not have medical bills.
Wounded by righteous causes. I've never heard that term before. Again, is that a South Korean only thing? Is that something that is just worldwide, that if you are wounded during a righteous cause, it's like something that's actually listed? I've like literally never heard that before.
In fact, the government actually turned their back on volunteer divers.
I assume they'd argue they would throw them to jail with how they act. Because they can just blame it on them. It's like, oh, we couldn't save anybody because these civilians kept getting in the way. So yeah, it's their fault, and we're gonna arrest them and throw them in jail.
They tried to charge a few of them for negligence when a
What did I say?
diver died during a mission. They said, well, it's because you other divers didn't check his equipment. But the Coast Guard was never held accountable. Divers had to go to court to explain, I am not responsible for another diver's death. I am just volunteering to save bodies. The divers that all tried while the Coast Guard did nothing, they were being used and abused. In 2015, Kim testified about the trauma that he suffered from handling all the dead bodies during the rescue efforts. He said he cannot forget it. He will never forget it. And in 2017, he took his own life.
Okay, I was gonna say, did any of these people do this? And there you go, someone did eventually do it. You can only imagine that will end up happening. Doing something like this.
His final text to his loved ones were, "I'll see you in a better place in the next life. I'm sorry." So you're mad, I'm mad, okay? Let's all be mad at someone. And there's a whole lot of people to be mad at in this case. Chonghaejin Ferry Company, the Coast Guard, the former president, and mainstream media. So let's talk about Chonghaejin Company first. The Ferry Company, this is the connection to the last episode if you listen to it, and the Ferry Company's sick obsession with overloading the cargo on their ferries. So this particular ferry, this Sewol, had a capacity
I don't know what you mean by the last episode. I don't think we saw that.
of holding 90 vehicles. On that day, there were 124 cars and 56 trucks.
Wow.
None of them were properly secured. None of them were even tied down. They were just driven onto the cargo port and just left on.
And they didn't really even think about it or care, right? Like, oh yeah, we're gonna have 350 kids on this boat today. We're just gonna be as negligent as possible with our cargo. Like, nothing bad's gonna happen, right? Right?
On park. They also took in more cargo than allowed for that size of a boat. Their maximum cargo hold is 987 tons, but they took in 1,157 tons, again, none of which was tied down.
Do we know why the person at the beginning turned the boat so much? 15 degrees?
Unclear to this day. We think it's incompetence.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we can really say anything other than just incompetence, right?
Just straight up was like trying to do 5, but turn 15 because it's manual steering. And I'll tell you why we think it's incompetence, because no one was trained. Like, none of the crews were trained. Oh, and side note, not all big boats are like that. Many big boats can turn at even higher degrees and be fine. But this specific boat, it was like a industry known thing between this company that this boat can only turn 5 degrees because it's unbalanced. It's not a universal boat thing. It's like this boat can
Yeah, so this boat's archetype is specifically made poorly in a way that it can only turn 5.
only turn 5 degrees. Now, it's not good to do a lot of degrees of turns, but still, this is crazy. The boat starts leaning to the left, which causes all the cargo and all the cars to slam to the left, which starts leaking in tons of water. Now, remember the ballast water that I was talking about? We have some exact measurements here. Like I said, it serves a very important purpose. It keeps the center of gravity low. But there is another thing that it does. So it's actually compartmentalized the water. It's not just like one big water tub. It's like you have
Yeah, you have different segments that you can fill in and fill out. Like you can change the levels of water inside the ballast or whatever the heck they're called.
left tub and the right tub, and I'm simplifying it. And then in between these two tubs, you have these pumps. So what happens is if the boat starts leaning to the left, you start pumping this water to the right tub, okay, to balance it out. The pumps were broken. That is, I can't even describe to you how bad that is.
Why were they broken? You're using a manufactured defect ship. I mean, that's not what it is, but you have like a ship that's manufactured with a defect. Pumps are broken. You're over the capacity for cargo. It's just constant bad thing after bad thing after bad thing adding up, just like Itaewon or probably any other of these, I would assume, tragedies that happen. But like really, just stacking debuffs.
The pumps were broken, and not only that, there's like a mathematical equation to figure out how much ballast water is needed to offset the cargo weight. Typically, it's around the 2 times mark, meaning you need double the water for the cargo. So if there's 100 pounds of water, you can only have 50 pounds of cargo. Okay? In this case, the Sewol was carrying about 580 tons of ballast water.
Okay, so do you need double water or double? They need double water. We have over 1,000 tons, so we needed 2,000 tons of water, which we're not even close to that.
For the amount of cargo they had, they needed 2,000 tons of ballast water. They had a fourth.
Yeah, so it's completely off.
So off. And that's what they started with. Okay. The crew actually pumped out hundreds of tons of water from the bottom to accommodate additional cargo when they were loading. And as the boat goes, you actually lose more ballast, like water, because part of that compartment is fuel. So as your boat is going, you lose fuel because you're using the fuel. So it becomes lighter. That's why you need extra water. So let's work our way up the food chain. The first people at fault were the captain and the crew. Not all the crew, but many members of the crew. Crewmates were investigated for their abysmal handling of the evacuation, and one crewmate in particular was told verbatim by authorities, remember, to go tell everyone to put on a life jacket? Yeah, well, he didn't do it. He was just like, oh yeah, I told them. But he just walked around the deck and was like, okay, yeah. What's crazier is that all the crew members that were on the bridge with the captain, they all left with him. They were some of the first to be rescued. But that also meant nobody else was on the bridge anymore to keep open communication with rescue efforts. So that
Yeah, I mean, like no crew members are in control of their boat anymore. It's just like fend for yourself. Residents of the boat. I forgot what it's called. I don't know why I cannot think of the word. Why can't I think of the word? Let me pause and think of the word. Yeah, passengers. So yeah, all passengers, you can just fend for yourself. There's nobody in control of the boats or anything. Like some crew members were still around, right? Because people died trying to save. Like those 3 people died trying to save people. But
them leaving the boat wasn't just bad that they were abandoning the boat, but there was no one to communicate with them on the boat. So all these Coast Guards are like, we're trying to talk to people on the boat, but like nobody's on the boat because you guys are out here. That's cool. A former U.S. Coast Guard investigator believes if those announcements of every passenger to stay in their cabin were not made, the passengers most likely, just human nature, would have
yeah, they would have panicked and ran outside.
gone to the deck to see what was going on. Then they would have become easily visible and more easily accessible to rescuers. Now, of course, it's heavily discussed and speculated how much of this announcement played a role in the deaths. Passenger Koo, a survivor, said that the passengers were trapped inside by windows that were very hard to break. He said he actually wanted to escape earlier, but those nonstop announcements kept telling him to stay put. He said the rescue was horrendous. We were all wearing life jackets. We all had time. If people had jumped into the water, they could have been rescued from the water. Another survivor said, the announcement told us to stay put, but the ship was already sinking. There were a lot of students who didn't get out of the ship in time because of those announcements. Okay, fine. So the captain and these crew members, minus a few of the hero crew members, they are horrendous, but how do they fuck up so majorly? Like, that doesn't even make sense. How do you even not have a loose plan on what to do in situations like this? That brings us to the company that owns the Sewol ferry, Chongjin Marine Company. Chongjin Marine is like a different kind of evil, okay? This is in connection with our last episode. Chongjin's company's biggest shareholders are owned by another company that is controlled by a billionaire church leader founder, Yoo Byung-eun's two sons. And in recent years, it was discovered that the Yoo family received a total of at least $3.82 million from the ferry company. They got paid out, like about $4 million from this ferry company. And you're like, okay, that's great, right?
I keep wondering what she's referring to in the last video. I'm guessing it's the bridge. There is the deadly Korean bridge collapse. I'm wondering if that's what she's talking about with the ferry.
That means the ferry company is doing well. No, the ferry company was in financial ruins. The year before the sinking, they reported a loss of $800,000 that year. They were cutting down on spending because the bottom line wasn't making sense. And you know where they were cutting down on spending? It was not to give their shareholders money. It was in the training and safety department of employees and new hires. Prosecutors discovered that so much money was being funneled to the billionaire family, nothing was left for the actual company. Nothing was left to train the employees. The company was so starved of funds that they spent only $2 on the safety training for the Sewol's crew members. $2.
Wait, how do you spend $2? What does $2 even get you? Like, what?
You get hired, the company spends $2 to train you.
$2 per person, or you're just saying $2? Because I was saying $2 as a whole is like, that's ridiculous. $2 is a per person. That's at least several dollars, but still, like $2. What does $2 buy? Because if we're going to take what little I know about trading videos, which I don't know anything about them, but I've watched a video of talking about silly training videos where these training videos cost an arm and a leg, like hundreds of dollars, $500, $1,000 for a training video that is in and of itself pretty incompetent. So if you have to spend that much on like a training video that's not even that good, $2 is not going to get you anything. Like, what is that? Just like a couple minutes on the internet to watch YouTube that has something to do with training? I feel like, what else could it be?
And you know what that money was spent on? It was not an actual training. The $2 was spent to buy a fake paper certificate that said you are now qualified to be a crew member. You have done your safety courses. Life jackets, life rafts were left uninspected from the 90s. And the life jackets weren't even stored where they were supposed to be, which is on the upper decks or near evacuation points. They were stored in the passenger cabins. Crew members who worked for the company admitted in interviews they would have had no clue what to do in case of an emergency. They've never had an evacuation training or a drill. To put it in perspective how horrendous that is, the U.S. Coast Guard regulations require passenger vessels to hold an abandoned ship drill and fire drill every single week. And it's not even like a hee ha ha we did it moment. You have to lower a lifeboat onto the water and start the engine of that lifeboat. That is the full drill. So it's a full-scale drill. Clearly, the Sewol did not do this, and Korean Coast Guards never regulated or followed up to any of the drills or training. But that still doesn't explain why the ship sank. Well, we have the overloading of the cargo, we have the ballast water, but there's actually more. All of that
Have we been holding out on something, or what?
is making the balance of this boat just unstable, okay? It's becoming more and more top heavy. The center of the gravity is not good right now, but it was worse because Chongjin bought the Sewol ferry from another company and modified it. And
Okay, why did the Sewol ferry sink? Dangerous renovations Renovations approved by regulators raised the ship's center of gravity. Passengers and crew members unbalanced. The ferry was drained of most of its ballast water, which is needed for the balance, so that it would not appear to inspectors to sit low in the water. Overloaded with cargo, the ferry was carrying more than twice the legal limit. Yeah, we already know that stuff. But yeah, we saw earlier when she had the other picture on screen that this section here had renovations for rooms, more rooms for people, question mark, and it's saying this is changing the ship's center of gravity. I don't know if that's pulling it this way or if it's pulling it that way. I assume we are, because this is in the back of the ship, that this is causing weight down this way. So the back of the boat is being tipped up, question mark. I mean, she'll probably explain that. So we're assuming more force is being applied back here. So this is being tipped up a bit, maybe, and then that is causing it to be able to, sway one way or the other, and thus swaying to the left. Too much.
And added 2 more levels on top to accommodate passenger cabins, which would bring in more money for them, raising up the center of gravity even more, making it extra top heavy, which you don't want. They also underwent major renovations to create an art gallery, where you guessed it, they housed Mr. Yoo Byung-eun's art, or should I say Ahe's art, that he would sell to them at inflated prices.
In the boat?
In the boat, there was an art gallery with, also more weight was added because they added these marble slabs, thick marble slabs to showcase his work. And the company knew that what they were doing was dangerous. You can't even act like they were ignorant because it was discovered that between 2003 and 2011, Chonghae-jin had 5 crashes prior to the sinking of the Sewol ferry. It was even recommended that their license be suspended or revoked, but that never happened. They actually purchased more ferries after 2011. They were also asked in 2003 to stop using the Mangol channel because you don't know what you're doing in there. You guys were in an accident in there. But they continued to use it because it shaves off a precious 7 miles on the trip to Jeju, which is 7 miles of fuel that they're saving on. Also,
I mean, it's always money, right? Just always comes down to money. Got to save as much money as possible. Got to make as much money as possible, etc., etc. Greed, greed, greed. Yada yada yada.
So in 2011, Chonghae-jin Company tried to board a passenger ferry, I think in the Han River, where it's during holiday season. The maximum capacity for that ferry was 200 people. They tried to board 500, and the only reason that a tragedy didn't occur is because passengers on board threatened to riot. They were like, no, you're not going to board that many people. This is insane. But that's how blatant they were in bending the rules and putting lives in danger. Dock employees had even complained that anytime they helped load or unload the Sewol, it would just roll around in the water. Company officials decided Sewol should be sold because of the complaints and the safety concerns, but that was vetoed by Mr. Billionaire Yoo Byung-eun himself. The executives instead started repeating the new mantra for the company, which was load as much cargo as possible. None of the cargo was ever chained or lashed down, meaning it would just smash around.
Probably costs money to buy all those chains, right? It also costs you time to bolt everything down as well. Chain everything down. So then they're just penny pinching, and more penny pinching.
The saddest part to all of this is that all the overloading of the Sewol, it brought in an extra $3 million. That is $10,000 for every passenger that died. That is it. $10,000 for a life. What's insane is that there's regulators for these things. You can't just start a maritime company and be like, okay, well, I'm going to do whatever I want on my boats. There's regulators. The Korean Register of Shipping was an agency that's responsible for these things. They never followed up or facilitated inspections. Thankfully, many of those inspectors and regulators are in prison. And so now, we know that Mr. Yoo Byung-eun's children, the billionaire kids, if you guys have watched the last episode, they were also in prison, and Mr. Yoo, the billionaire, was found suspiciously dead in his apricot orchard during the nationwide hunt for him immediately after this.
Okay, what? What is the other video? She has not mentioned the name of the last video. What is she talking about? Like, what? Children are in prison, and he was being manhunted and just self-deleted, question mark? Or did someone actually get to him first and we're just not going to say who did it? Because it's just like just a good riddance scenario.
Oh, that was the time.
Yes. Like right after this, everyone was like, what the hell is going on with Chung Hae-jin? They're like, who owns Chung Hae-jin? Oh, the major shareholder is this random company. Well, who owns that company? There was a manhunt. Now, it is speculated, and I think all these people should be in jail, by the way, but it is speculated that the manhunt for them was a very smart tactic for the President Park at the time, because she was putting a lot of heat on the family versus government response. She was saying, I mean, government response was bad, but like, this is the reason it even sunk in the first place.
I mean, again, they got to keep making boogeymans. The government's always going to point to someone else other than themselves.
Yeah, so the corruption and incompetence does not end there. What about the
Yeah, just deflecting away from the government to this. I mean, it is their fault. At the very beginning of things, since if none of this stuff was playing out like this would have never have happened. But then it's still on your responsibility now that it has happened to make sure that everybody lives through that, and then you can blame him and throw him under the bus where he belongs. But no, you're just deflecting to save face, which apparently didn't even work. So
Coast Guard in the first place. Yeah, so the corruption and incompetence does not end there. What about the Coast Guard? I mean, I don't think I need to reiterate how badly they dropped the ball on this, but it was horrendous. Like, they should be ashamed to even wear a uniform. The first rescue vessel, Coast Guard Vessel 123, they went to the ferry and they waited 20 minutes before they even rescued the captain. Because they're like, well, we got here, but we don't know what to do. So they just sat around until someone was like, I guess you could send a small boat and try to rescue someone. Do you see anyone?
like, how does nobody in this country know what to do? I mean, how do the civilians know what to do, but the people? Like, I mean, we're just gonna go around in circles and circles the entire video, right? The civilians know what to do in this situation, but the actual rescue people don't know what to do. How are you getting
Yeah, we see
hired?
some people on the deck. They're like,
So
"Okay,
again, they're being hired to hunt down Chinese fishermen.
small boat and try to rescue someone. Do you see anyone? They're like, yeah, we see some people on the deck. They're like, okay. It was also revealed that the Coast Guard not only refused to rescue people essentially, but they made it harder for civilians or other nations to help. So when
Yeah, I mean, we already know that.
civilians came and they're like, I'm going to try to rescue people, the Coast Guard was like inspecting their stuff, looking at their stuff. Like, I don't think you shouldn't do that. Where's your license? Do you have a fishing license, or were you out here illegally fishing? I'm trying to save people. I'm trying to do your job. They're like the parking ticket police, and people are dying. They also were so bad. Eventually, once it was deemed that everyone was dead, the U.S. Navy and a lot of their professional divers were brought in to recover a lot of the bodies that were hard to find.
Okay, so they actually did eventually come in. I didn't know if that was going to happen. Because, like, it's already too little too late. Y'all didn't let him go in earlier.
The U.S. Navy took one look at how the Korean Coast Guard was handling things and said, unless you fix this list of insanely abysmal conditions of safety, we are not sending a single American in there. So the U.S. Navy and professional divers were finally, after like months, asked to come in and rescue some not rescue, but recover bodies. And the U.S. said, okay, fine, we'll go take a look. The Navy looks around where the ferry had sank. They have a list of the most egregious safety violations that they'd ever seen. And they're like, we are not sending a single American into the water unless you fix all of this first. And the Korean Coast Guard was like, then I guess we'll just figure it out ourselves. They just refused to make it safe for anyone to dive. It was bizarre. The U.S. Navy was like, this is bizarre. Just how unprofessional and unsafe, and ultimately how annoying you're making this and impossible for people to even help you. Like, you can't do your job, but now you're making it impossible for me to do your job. Ridiculous. Now, another thing about the Coast Guard, remember the Mokpo Coast Guard where the first helicopter comes and saves someone, right? Well,
The one that saved 6 people and then never came back.
another helicopter comes in to save people, and they don't really ever save people because he's just a helicopter driver. He actually asked the head chief of the Mokpo Coast Guard to like get in his helicopter so that they can save people. And the chief was like, oh, I'm really tired from last night's work, and I feel like the helicopter noise is going to give me a headache. So he just sent one of his officers who just circled around the ferry the whole time. And then once all of this starts getting leaked, you know what a lot of these entities do? They start deleting files, mass deleting files, and the Chindo authorities that were also involved, they actually went as far to delete all their CCTV footage from inside their government office building the day of the incident. So
They actually just deleted all evidence the day. So I'm guessing that's just gone forever, right? Because who was going to assume that they would just do that? Just like never punished, right?
at first, only low-ranking officials and government officials were investigated and prosecuted. The families were enraged because, let's be real, in the hierarchical Korean society, you think this low-level intern is making the shots? Like, he's making the calls. He's like, no, we're not sending divers in. You think so? No, absolutely not. So they pushed and pushed, and in the end, President Park was facing so much heat, she announced a plan to break up and defund the Korean Coast Guard. She created a new department, but honestly, it's just a PR move. I'm sure most of the Coast Guard was moved to that new department.
I mean, it's all just a PR move, right?
And the next president, President Moon, would just revive the Coast Guard in 2017. So nothing really changed. Many more arrests were made. More than 150 regulators, crew members, ship inspectors, and officials were indicted.
Hold on. I'm not going to let that slip. The new president in 2017 happened in 2014. Allegedly, 2014 president was impeached, which means she still got to go through 3 years, of presidency before the new one got to come in, before she got impeached. So she basically just held out her entire term anyways, right? She basically got her 4 years, even if she did get impeached. Right? If I'm reading that correctly?
Including the captain of the Sewol ferry.
Okay, let's just go back like a while.
And defund the Korean Coast Guard. She created a new department, but honestly, it's just a PR move. I'm sure most of the Coast Guard was moved to that new department, and the next president, President Moon, would just revive the Coast Guard in 2017. So
okay, so the new president he revived them in 2017. I guess that doesn't necessarily mean he got into power in 2017.
Nothing really changed. Many more arrests were made. More than 150 regulators, crew members, ship inspectors, and officials were indicted, including the captain of the Sewol ferry. He was charged with murder. And he said, I bow my head, and I just thought if people were leaving the ferry without the proper equipment, they would drown or drift away in the water. So that's why he told them to stay put.
Why the don't you stay put then?
Yeah. Because he wasn't wearing a life vest when he was rescued, so why don't you stay put?
이런 지시를 받은 적이 있습니까?
Were you ever ordered to set up a plan to save the passengers on the ferry?
기억이 없습니다.
I don't
With
remember.
that much guilt and also public hate and scrutiny and a criminal trial, I would rather have died on the boat. So I just think it's so fascinating that some people have such a strong will to live that you would rather kill people to live. Nobody cared what he had to say. In the end, he was found guilty of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment.
Okay, so we got life in prison. Now, from was it Masquerade video? That's also where we're getting from some of the incompetence from, because there's a cannibal cult in Korea, South Korea, that the police are kind of incompetent with as well. So it's again, there's still more incompetence that we keep seeing. But I mean, that's just the entire world. We're not going to say the government in South Korea is just constantly incompetent. That's not fair to say. It's just every government is incompetent and stupid, right? I mean, it's probably not every single one, right? There has to be one good one out there somewhere. But yeah, there's also that.
He was later acquitted and received 36 years in prison instead.
What?
So he got 36 instead of life. Oh, I brought up the Masquerade cannibal cult thing because the cannibal cults was actually hanged to death. So they actually had the death penalty, which I was surprised. Like, what? You get hanged in Korea? They're still hanging people? Going to the gallows? So I was like wondering, like, is he gonna get sent to the gallows? But I guess either this is too far into the future where they don't hang people anymore. I don't know, or they didn't think it was because he didn't directly kill people with his own 2 hands, and thus he doesn't get the death penalty. I don't know.
Yeah. He was
How do
saying,
you acquit that?
he was saying, okay, everyone is shifting, even in the criminal trials, this is crazy. Everyone is shifting blame. So he's shifting the blame and saying, yes, I shouldn't have left the boat. I shouldn't have given these orders. But ultimately, everybody died because the Coast Guard didn't rescue them. The Coast Guard is saying everybody died ultimately because they were told to stay in their cabins. So this is what they're doing. I know. This is what he looks so disgusted right now. This is what they're doing.
Wow. Like, just for that, I think he deserves another life sentence on top.
Like, just the audacity of these
Yeah.
things. So there were criminal charges levied against 399 people, including the imprisonment of 154 people. 6 survivors from Tanwon High School were subpoenaed for their testimony during the criminal proceedings, and they said, a ferry with about 300 passengers, most of them students, is sinking fast. But instead of staging full-out rescue efforts, the crew members are nowhere to be seen, and the Coast Guard is just watching from afar. 30 students lined up for the emergency exit. The rescue teams didn't arrive, so we started jumping into the water. But eventually, the water got too close, and the emergency exit was no longer available to open. We were waiting to jump. We saw the Coast Guard within arm's reach. They were on the other side of that emergency exit. And we were screaming at them that we're right here, but they just watched. Parents were understandably infuriated with all of this, with all these people and entities, but there was still the problem of the missing bodies. So by the summer of 2014, more rescue teams were sent in, and bodies, at first, there were more found, and of course, it was few and further in between. But at one point, a body was found in an area that the divers already claimed that they had searched multiple times. So let's say they said they searched room B on the 3rd floor. They said,
Okay, so now we're just making stuff up. Like, oh yeah, we searched it just so they wouldn't have to do as much work. Like, we did it. You don't have to worry about it. Yeah, you don't have to go check. We did it. Like, hey, stop looking. We did it. Believe us, we did it.
we searched that like 10 times. And then a body was found by a rescue diver in room B on the 3rd floor. So of course it brings the question of competency of the recovery efforts yet again. Another body was found, a high school student, in a bathroom that had allegedly already been searched 13 times according to official records. So what the hell is going on here? 13 times it showed that it was searched by the Coast Guard. The distrust was only growing stronger, and it's not just people, the divers that are losing the trust of the parents, but it's also the Coast Guard forensics teams. So the way that they would do it is these Coast Guard divers would dive into each room of each level and they would collect a water sample. They would bring this water sample up and then collect another water sample at the surface of the water. They would then test these water samples, and I guess there's certain bacteria or something in the water they're looking for that indicates there are human remains in that room. But if it's a match to the surface water, that means that there is no corpse in that area. So they said they checked it 13 times. The bathroom water was tested 2 to 3 times, and each time it showed that it was the same and consistent as the surface water. A volunteer diver found the girl in the bathroom. It is heavily implied that these Coast Guard divers were lazy and just collected 2 samples from the surface of the water and said one was from the bathroom down in the boat, one was from the surface water. Oh, they're a match. There's no body in there. We're doing.
Yeah, again, they just don't want to do their job. They're just constantly. They don't want to go rescue anybody. They don't want to do any tests. They don't want to go and recover. It's just, leave me alone and let me go home. They don't want to do anything.
Doing so well. Nothing. I mean, nothing is going right. The authorities didn't get one thing right, and the dives were getting even more dangerous. And there are actually a lot of more deaths that are associated with this that are not including like the 300 on board. A Navy officer was injured and passed away. An Undyne Marine named Mr. Lee passed away during a dive, which I know that we talked badly about Undyne, but that's the company, not the employee's problem. He was actually diving when he just lost contact with everyone on surface. So his colleagues went into the water. He was found dead. Yeah, his air supply cords were tangled and he was unconscious without his diving equipment on. It's not really clear what happened. An x-ray of his chest showed no irregularities, but a scan showed that his skull was filled with air. Now, a few weeks later, another civilian diver passed away. July of 2014, a helicopter from rescue operations crashed, killing all 5 officers on board and injuring a high school student. There was another
Roll it
crash
back. I did not take that in.
irregularities, but a scan showed that his skull was filled with air. Now, a few weeks later, another civilian diver passed away. July of 2014, a helicopter from rescue operations crashed, killing all 5 officers on board and injuring a high school student. There was another death linked to the sinking that shocked a lot of people. The vice principal of Tanwon High School, Vice Principal Kang.
I'm assuming this is the person who hanged themselves.
He was found hanging from a tree
Yeah.
near Chindo Island. So this is the island where all the parents had gathered, and it's said that he was the leader of this school trip. He was in charge of the kids' safety. He was rescued, but over 250 of his students were not. He wrote in his note that he feels guilty and he wants to take responsibility for what happened. He wrote that the trip was his idea, and he cannot live without knowing where his students are. He wrote in the letter that he wonders if he could still be their teacher on the other side. In death, he asked his ashes to be scattered around where the ferry went down. Now, the sad part is, before his death, a lot of parents took their anger out on him, and so did a lot of Korean news media outlets, like a lot of adults. But when he passed, students and survivors alike, they went to his memorial in uniform and paid their respects and said he was an ethics teacher. So I wonder if it was really hard for him. He was a good person and he really cared for students. I don't think anyone should be blaming him. Again,
It's not like they would know this would happen. He was just trying to do something for the kids, right? So it's like he doesn't have any blame for this. It's everything else but this guy was to blame. So yeah, just oof on that one.
another instance where I feel like a child is sometimes more wise than an adult. After the memorial, the hearse carrying his body circled around the school one last time. He was survived by his wife and 3 children. At least 3 parents have taken their own lives after losing their children in the Sewol ferry. One of the fathers took his life on the 1-year anniversary of the Sewol ferry tragedy.
I mean, you have to assume we're gonna hear a lot about that. Most parents, well, not most, but there's parents out there they're just not gonna be able to live anymore after that. Something like that happens.
Many families have completely disintegrated, divorce, fallen into addictions, financial distress. One mom said, "You just have to cry when it's hard. There's no way around it. No one, nothing can console you or help you. When I miss my son, I go lie in his bed and I hug his pillows and I smell his smell and I cry." Many families have left their children's room exactly the way it is, not touching a single thing, almost as if these students are going to walk in through their door with their backpack. Most families hate spring. April is like the best season in South Korea. They hate it. One victim's mom said her husband, the victim's father, has these intense nightmares. And she said, "My husband constantly has nightmares, kicking his leg, even grabbing me by the collar. And one night when I hugged him, he just let out these screams. And he cried like a baby. He just looked so lonely." Many siblings of victims fell to self-harm and depression. One sister has her birthday on April 19th, and for years, it was too hard, too painful for her to even celebrate. And for the first time, she asked her parents if they would like to join her for dinner for her birthday. So it's been very rough for these families, rescue personnel, but also the survivors. Survivors' guilt is a scary, scary thing. I mean, I think it's confusing. Like, how do you even process that type of emotion? There was a 71-year-old woman who was eating breakfast when she heard screaming. She saw people just sliding down the floor, so she grabbed a railing and saw everyone tumble like dominoes.
Where the 71-year-old was on the boat?
Remembers going into shock, but this young man grabbed her arm and screamed, "Come on, hold on to me tightly." She was trying to let go and slide down with everyone because she was so exhausted. She's 71, but she's like, no, I can't hold on any longer. She said she was exhausted, but this young man never gave up on her and kept holding her arm. He grabbed her and pulled her up. He failed, so he pulled her up again, and this time it worked. He escorted her to the rescue boats, and she would not have made it out without him. She wanted to ask for his name, but it was so chaotic, he was just gone. Her 4 friends she was traveling with for this Jeju trip, her 4 friends died. She suffered a broken back, and she said, "I'm grateful. I want to thank that young man. I want to buy him a meal or at least hold his hand or give him a hug. What else can a lady like me do? But how could it be that an old woman like me survives and all these young people are still in there? It is such a shame." Civilians very early on realized that they were being lied to, so they tried to show their support to the parents with yellow ribbons. Even while news outlets are still lying, civilians tied yellow ribbons everywhere to show their support, to show parents, we know and we are supporting you. Since then, yellow ribbons have been used to symbolize mourning for the Sewol Ferry victims, but it's almost now become synonymous with skepticism against the government and standing up to corruption.
I mean, that makes sense, since that's kind of like what's happening, but it just seems to keep happening, right? Though, I mean, keep happening. I'm with two incidences so far. Are these like big tragedies in Korea? So I don't know if there's actually that many, because again, it just seems like she does a lot of Korean stuff, South Korean stuff, but which just makes sense. But I don't know if there really is like a million tragedies that the government is constantly at fault for. If a picture is just being painted, because we watched 2 videos that happen to be that way. The death mall was not the government's fault. It was a billionaire's fault. I don't remember what the police did or the rescue team, but I feel like the rescue team actually was trying from the get-go. On top of like people, just random people trying to help as well. So we can't really add that. And then the incompetence with the Korean cannibal cults. I forgot why they didn't do anything about that. Because a self-made businessman and his wife were kidnapped in that story. They were made to get a bunch of money and give it to the cult. And when the husband went to give money, or get the money from someone he knew, he whispered in the guy's ear that he's been kidnapped, don't follow him or something. And that man immediately went to the police. And I don't remember why the police didn't help, but they goofed up. And the cult kept going, and they ended up killing the man and the woman. And probably killed a bunch more people after that. But there's constant goofery. But I mean, I guess you can't be... You also have to have it on the other side. You can't be perfect 24/7. We want them to be perfect 24/7, but again, just humans, yada yada yada. No one's perfect, but still, it's how it is, right? It's just unfair.
A lot was exposed about high government officials when this case broke, like how President Park was unavailable for up to 7 hours during the initial incident. So not only was she unavailable, but her and her administration falsified schedule records to show that she was on official duties at the time, which she was not. Which, even if you're on official duties, I'm sorry, your nation's children are dying on a boat, get it together, it can wait. She just wasn't involved. I guess I don't know if she wasn't alerted, or I don't know if she wasn't making enough calls, so now all these officials are covering for her, or her administration is covering for her. Now, President Park's administration was also exposed for bullying and threatening reporters and news networks for reporting on the truth.
Though, I mean, apparently she said that she's just been doing that forever, right? So I feel like that shouldn't have been news, but now it's coming to light because it actually matters, and someone has to take accountability, right?
They even indicted a Japanese reporter who shit on her for handling this tragedy in the way that she did, and Japan slammed South Korean prosecutors, and the chief cabinet secretary of Japan said, freedom of press should be respected, and that indictment was far out of the norms of the accepted wisdom in the international community. So it's clear, the president cares about her appearance domestically and oddly, very much so internationally, and that's it. And when she decided she was sick of people calling her out for her vile, disgusting behavior, she said this about the Sewol tragedy. It's time to overcome the pains and hardship from the Sewol incident and move on to build a new South Korea. We cannot stay trapped in the sadness and frustrations that have gripped us for the past year. At this point, bodies were still being recovered. Not everyone has been put to rest yet. She was later impeached for corruption. This is a big part of it. Her ratings dropped drastically after this. And shamanism, oddly, were the reasons that she was impeached. We have a video on.
What does it even mean? Oh, the First Lady of South Korea's scandalous past. Yeah, I've seen this thumbnail, the Pringles, but I was like, what is that image? Just this mukbang video. I don't even know where she is. Is this her? I can't tell because we had this weird mukbang thing going on. I don't know if she's even in this thumbnail. I'm guessing this is her. But not in that. This is Rotten Mango, is what I mean. And I'm guessing this is the First Lady? Question mark. Yeah. Again, I don't know what is going on with this thumbnail. This mukbang, this cheese on these noodles.
On it, but anyway, not a great
Maybe
person.
maybe
In the end,
the Pringles cheese has nothing to do with the video. Maybe that is just a mukbang video that she made. Like, I don't know. Did Rotten Mango do mukbang before? Because again, like the noodles and the Pringles cheese, just like what does that have to do with what is happening in that video story? So confused on that one. I mean, I'd have to look at it to see, but that's just really weird.
and 9 bodies were still missing in the incident, and the parents stood by each other to make sure those victims came home to be laid to rest, which would ultimately lead to the Sewol being salvaged from the bottom of the seafloor, but it took a very long time to get there. The parents requested that the Sewol ferry be salvaged immediately because evidence, the bodies are intact, like, we need to do this, right? There are speculations that the government went out of their way to come up with a million reasons on why this was impossible.
Sure. I mean, again, just constantly just doing this, trying to save face.
It's theorized that they were scared that the evidence would show incompetence. One big thing that got a lot of people mad was that out of 172 survivors, more than half of them were rescued by fishing boats and other civilians and or commercial boats that had nothing to do with the government. One survivor said, "I wonder why the rescuers who first got to the ship didn't do anything about 100 or 200, I think, were trapped inside. They were just picking up the ones at the top." Now, can we talk about the salvaging of the ferry real quick? Okay, this is crazy. 2 months, I think it was like 2 months after the sinking of the ferry, 7 private companies brought in proposals. So this happens a lot with these sometimes natural disasters, sometimes national disasters. These private companies will bring in proposals, and it was 7 maritime companies that said, hey, we have a way to salvage the ferry. This is how we're going to do it. This is option A, this is option B, this is option C, and this is how much we would charge the government to do it. Thank you. That's our proposal. It's almost like a government bid. All these companies are trying to get this deal so that they can salvage the ferry. Now, one company in particular had a very unique plan. The
I
problem
mean, it is still capitalism, right? They're still trying to make money, but at least they're trying to do something to get the boat out, even if it's fueled by greed.
with salvaging this ferry was not, oh, let's just lift it up by cranes and then bring it ashore. It's not like that. It's so complicated because you have bodies in there. You have evidence in there. You want to keep these bodies as intact as possible. So there's a lot that you're working with, and it's in the channel, the Mangor channel, so there's a lot. So their plan was to tilt the boat onto its side again, because right now it was like inverted. Tilt it to its side, crane it onto a floating vessel, and salvage it there. That was like their plan. The government reads this proposal like 2 months after the sinking. Everyone says, when are you going to salvage the boat? They said, we have to do tests. We have to find the perfect solution. You guys, you don't understand because you don't know, but it's so hard. You know, this is in the water. It's very, very sensitive issue. We need to make sure none of the evidence gets lost. We need to make sure the bodies are intact. So it's going to take some time. We need to do a lot of tests.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of like bureaucracy, right? I didn't think of that word until right now, but just nonsense, layers and layers of layers of nonsense that isn't actually anything that matters. They just, again, just saving face. I've been saying it all episode, but they're gonna make up constantly nonsense so they can just deflect and deflect and deflect forever until you just forget there's a problem. But I feel like this isn't something that can just be forgotten, right? No one's gonna forget this. At least in South Korea.
Later, the government comes out and says, after a year of that, we have amazing news. We have found the best solution. They take credit for the solution that they had on their desks 2 months after the sinking, and they pretty much copy that proposal word for word. And that was exposed by Newstapa. Parents of victims gathered together in front of government buildings to stage a hunger strike.
I just want to see what these things say.
Victims gathered together in front of.
So we want the truth of the Sewol Ferry tragedy, family Sewol Ferry tragedy. Messages to Pope Francis. Why Pope Francis specifically? I was wondering why there's English here. The joy of gospel is possible only with the truth of soul. We have other languages as well. So they just wrote it in a bunch of different languages. so that I guess the world would understand what's going on, and not just South Korea, so that everybody could hear what's happening.
Of government buildings to stage a hunger strike, not for money, but for the truth. They just wanted answers on how something like this could have happened. For months, the country mourned with them, and there's a moving story about a father who ate nothing but water and salt for 46 days.
Can you live off of what? I mean, off of salt for that long? Water, sure, you need a water, but is salt all you... Can you just live off of salt for that long? That seems pretty crazy. To just live off of salt for 40-something days. I mean, you're gonna get scurvy, right, if nothing else? What was the 3 rules for... which is it 3 hours of air and then 3 hours... Is air even part of this? 3 hours of air, 3 hours of water. Is it 3 weeks? I don't think it'd be 3 months without food. 3 months without food seems crazy. It must be 3 weeks without food. So he went more than 3 weeks without food. So I guess salt is enough to keep you sustained, but he must be like so malnourished, if that's true.
The president still had some supporters, super conservatives, that came out to eat pizza and fried chicken in front of the parents who were hunger striking.
It must not be 3 hours of air because I'm pretty sure it only takes like 8 minutes. If you don't have air for 8 minutes, you're basically just gonna be brain dead. So I don't know what the first 3 is. I just making sure I looked up right. Yeah, I guess it's 3 minutes of air, right? So yeah, not 3 hours. It's just like going from minutes to days didn't feel right, but yeah, it's 3 minutes without air, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food, I think.
I don't know why they defended the president like that's your mom or something.
Let's roll back. What?
I don't know why they
Roll
eat
back even
pizza
further.
and fried chicken and
Okay, way back.
answers on how something like this could have happened. For months, the country mourned with them, and there's a moving story about a father who ate nothing but water and salt for 46 days. The president still had some supporters, super conservatives, that came out to eat pizza and fried chicken in front of the parents who were hunger striking. I don't know why they defended the president like that's your mom or something.
I mean, that's just how it is, right? Some people will just defend someone blindly forever. You can't really help that, but just being malicious for the sake of being malicious, though. Showing up and eating in front of these people.
I don't know why anyone defends any politician, regardless of what their beliefs are, so vehemently. Like, I mean, it's crazy. One parent stated, "I don't need money, compensation, or trauma therapy. I just need the truth, please. That's all." And he formally bowed in front of lawmakers, begging for them to help. Families of victims even shaved their heads in public in a demonstration. They just wanted to put their family members to rest. And
the bereaved families shaved their heads in protest to the government's decision.
the government just kept asking, "So you want compensation? No, we want you to find our family members."
I noticed this earlier because she already talked about the yellow ribbons, but this channel has like the yellow ribbon up here. Because I noticed that early, but I don't know if that had any. I didn't even think that had anything to do with this, but as soon as I saw her talking about the yellow ribbons, yeah, we can see that there is a yellow ribbon in part of this logo for the station. I'm not sure. This must be the station that she said is like the good station, right?
Finally, the ferry was salvaged 3 years later. There were 9 missing passengers at that point, and only partial remains would be found in the salvaging. Many of the victims were put to rest 1,000 days after the tragedy. But by the end of October 2018, 5 people are still missing. 2 16-year-old students, a 57-year-old teacher, a 48-year-old father, and the 7-year-old boy. Remember the older brother of the 6-year-old sister? They are still missing. The families of all the victims would receive approximately $177,000 for each victim lost, which is absolutely nothing. I mean, first of all, they didn't even want it in the first place, but it's absolutely nothing. 71 days.
I mean, again, as I've said it like 1,000 times, we always say it just always comes down to that. Like, okay, sure, you lost somebody, here's some money, but again, the money doesn't bring that back, so it doesn't do anything. But like, what else can anybody do?
Days after the Sewol sinking, survivors returned to school, and before the
Well,
one
maybe
day,
what?
nothing. I mean, first of all, they didn't even want it in the first place, but it's absolutely nothing. 71 days after the Sewol sinking.
Okay, so only 2+ months after. it happened, the kids had to go back to school.
Survivors returned to school, and before the tragedy, the sophomore class of Tanwon had 325 students. Now there were 75 in that class. All 75 were provided group therapy as part of the class time. 10 counselors were brought in to be readily available, and students at Tanwon said, "Every student here knows someone who has died or has gone missing." Like, just imagine the depth, like the web of trauma left behind. One student says, "Our school feels so empty now. It's not an environment where we can study. I wake up every morning hoping it's a lie, but it's not." And I will say that when tragedy does strike, Korea is a nation that at least the civilians come together. The government...
What did I say? She's literally parroting what I've said like several times throughout this video. Like, the civilians are like have like crazy levels of like heroism, empathy, etc. And the government's the exact opposite.
Wow. But the civilians do come together in honor of the Sewol tragedy. All K-pop groups, every single one, stopped the release of all new music and promotions. The whole entertainment industry was at a standstill. Most industries in South Korea were at a standstill. There were no ads, no promotions for anything. And once the mourning period was over, BTS came back with a song called Spring Day, directly inspired by Sewol. The translated lyrics read, "I miss you even though I'm looking at your photo. Time is a cruel thing. I want to go to the other side of the earth holding your hand. How long do I have to wait? How many nights do I have to pass to see you, to meet you? Until spring day comes again, until the flowers bloom again. Please stay here a little longer." Another K-pop artist dedicated...
Okay, before we get into more K-pop stuff. So this was 2014. They were 16. It's now 11 years later. So these kids are probably 27 now. So they're really 27, really? Am I thinking about that? Yeah, they're nearly 27 question mark. Okay, so we have a entire near generation, not necessarily a full generation, but we have an entire block of like 75 plus people that are all trauma bonded together. So they're in their 20s, they're deep 20s now. I would assume if any of these guys can get into politics, this could like really make Korea better. I'd argue. If they're still alive now, right? And they are still so upset about what happened and don't want it to happen again, I feel like if they just spread out all over Korea and just like got into all the political spots, they could maybe do something crazy and just like try to like reform the government to be way better. I don't know. That's just a thought I had, that they went through all that, so maybe now that might make them get into politics or just like governments, or maybe well, it would probably be pretty hard for some of them that want to be the Coast Guard or Navy stuff, but maybe it did. You never know. It might force a lot of them to just go into that kind of stuff and try to make the place better, right? Make the place a better world, etc., yada yada.
His concert to a fan that had purchased tickets to be there, but she passed on the Sewol ferry. Shin Young-jae, of four men, finished and produced a song called You Whom I Love, and the song was written by one of the teenagers that passed on the Sewol. His name is Lee Da-eun, and he wanted to be an artist one day. He plays the guitar, he writes his own lyrics, and his idol, his role model in life, was Shin Young-jae. After the Sewol tragedy, his parents reached out, just not really expecting anything, but he finished the song and performed it in honor of all the victims. The lyrics translated are, "To you who has suffered so much, you went through a lot, right? I want to hold you in my arms, and right now I hope you're dreaming sweet dreams. But we're sleepless at night thinking of you. I wish you could relax, but just know that I will always be here with you, right next to you." Many artists and idols wore yellow ribbons during performances to honor the victims. But I will end the very long video with this. A family member of one of the victims was asked, why do you think this happened? Why do you think the kids weren't saved? And he said, people ask that all the time. Why do you think they failed to protect the children? And I think above all, they just had no desire to protect the children.
Yeah.
Golden time, all they did was lie. What are your thoughts on this case? And please stay safe, and I will see you guys on.
Yeah, I mean, like, again, they didn't care. That's just like the standard story, right? They just really did not care about them at all. Just massive incompetence all around, but it's almost not even, I don't know if we could even say it's incompetence, and it's just like, I've used negligence a lot, but they just didn't care. Like, oh yeah, whatever. Got a safe face, not my problem. What else do we have here? Why people thought, again, a lot of, like, most of her newer videos are just about Diddy, and I don't really care for that, so I'm not going to be watching any of that stuff. The most evil middle schoolers in South Korea, and the Korea's no-face billionaire mysteriously linked to something. These would be other ones we could watch in the future, but I don't have anything specific to watch anymore, so I might just pick something at random, I don't know. But yeah, that one was, of course, pretty rough. I think Taiwan was a bit rougher because we had so much like first party commentary and a lot of the parents' thought and stuff like that. Like there was a part like most of this up to here was like fine, but then it got kind of rough around there. There's some stuff over here that was like pretty hard to watch, but she didn't seem to cry too much during this one, which that's also a factor, like I said at the beginning. Did I say at the beginning of this one or like the end of another video? It just, that also adds to making the videos hard to watch if she starts breaking down. And then she cuts that out, but you can still see that she's about to break down, then it cuts, and then she comes back to keep talking about it. And if you have like a % of empathy, seeing someone else cry might bother you, so it makes it rough. But yeah, like, again, I don't know what is going on with Korean governments and whatnot, but again, it seems like even she sees that the civilians, not to like use this gamer term, come in clutch when it has to do with actually helping people, saving people, just having empathy to begin with. Like empathy for people who don't even matter to you, who have nothing to do with you, you've lost nothing, and still breaking down over the loss. You know, like the people who tried to save people, breaking down, and then the government just, as it seems like all governments, just do not care a single bit about anything. But yeah. So we got 3 hours and 20 minutes. So again, it is kind of rough to talk about. It's rough to talk about or over these videos, like I was saying before. We'll get to this. I mean, this video is like slightly less than 2 hours. We got over nearly 3.5 hours. So I think it's pretty okay. At least we didn't go like 4 hours, like double that. It's gonna take me forever to upload this, and by forever I mean it's gonna take me nearly 4 hours. Well, probably gonna take me 4 hours to upload this. So that's oof. Again, I probably will just be doing like Nuke's top 5 or something tomorrow, which I haven't done in this series yet. I have reacted to Nuke's top 5 like several years ago, but in a live stream. But this is the first time it'll be part of the Rad series, just because like, can I get a break, man? It's been like 19 days of just pure tragedy and murder and horrible stuff happening, and just like literally watching it daily and commenting on it daily, and usually commenting slightly longer than what the video actually ends up being. I mean, not Rotten Mangoes, because I can't again commentate over videos this long, and the way she reads them is kind of just something you have to listen to and not try to chime in too often. But like, can I just get a break, please, for like 5 seconds tomorrow? Again, I was gonna do that today, but I was like, I have to finish like the last one, like out of the trilogy that was suggested. So here we are. So yeah, tomorrow, I'm sorry, it's probably going to be like some silly ghost videos or something like that. Silly short ghost video that I pick out tomorrow, just so we can have a chill. Just give me a break for like 5 seconds. Again, I didn't even think about how I worded it at the beginning, that could be problematic. That was my bad. But again, like, just, can I just get a break, please? Thanks. So guys, thanks for watching. Remember to buy my stickers and think about becoming a member. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed, because we're working on watch time and subscribers. And don't forget we have a throne now as well. And shout out the members, EmmyStarr and RaleyDrew, which I haven't actually brought the throne up on screen before, but I'll let that load in. Usually it takes forever, which is why I don't do that. And what do I even have up on my throne right now? I don't know. Let me cut and be back in a second. Okay, so we have the MetaQuest 3 still there on the throne. If you want to help out for that, get it for the channel so we can make videos with the MetaQuest 3, I'd appreciate it. I'm assuming like no one's ever gonna do that, right? But I have all this stuff on there too. Like I have just like food and drink too. I think, no, I don't die of starvation. That's not gonna happen. But if you want to help with the throne, there's the throne stuff there. And again, I eventually will have vlog here on my coffee shop ? Up for sale. I don't know how much to put it up. It might just be $15 if I'm going to be real. So if you want to buy this model and use it yourself or just play around with it, you can get it for $15 whenever added to my little shop of cuties on my coffee, which currently is not up right now, but you'll know when it's up because I'll let you know. Same thing, Mine Castlin, which is another model I was working on. That'll be up there soon too, probably, if I get to work to it. I should have worked on it yesterday. I should be working on it today, but of course we've been here for like 3 hours, so I don't really have much time to do that because it's going to upload for 4 hours, blah, 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 blah. Nobody cares. So guys, thanks for watching. Tune into the next episode. Like, subscribe, comment. You know what to do. See ya.